books lined, highlighters, pages, and a fearless mind. She walked that hall with fire in her chest, lost school dreams and a future dressed. She laughed too loud, she stayed too late, left her name in every room she made. Then one hard night the door went still, and grief has been calling the hill. 25 years and the candles burn, questions circle with no return. They named a man and closed the file, but something in the shadows stayed a while. Will the truth come out? Will the truth come out? Who was close enough to leave that down? Will the truth come out? Will the truth come out? 25 years on, we're still calling out. Edrick stood under borrowed blame, a headline pinned to a living name, but paper folds and stories bend, and the wrong road can still pretend there's someone nearer in the smoke, a familiar face, a half-spoken joke, a door left open, a lie held tight, a hand that knew her on that night. 25 years and the candles burn, questions circle with no return. They named the man and closed the file, but something in the shadows stayed a while. Will the truth come out? Will the truth come out? Who was close enough to leave that down? Will the truth come out? Will the truth come out? 25 years on, we're still calling out. Her books still wait in the dark for one clean name, one honest mark. If guilt was hidden in plain sight, then let it break. Find one in light. One closer look, one final thread, one spoken truth for the dead. Let the silence lose its crown. Let the truth come out now. Will the truth come out? Will the truth come out? Who was close enough to leave that down? Will the truth come out? Will the truth come out? 25 years on, we're still calling out. Will the truth come out? Will the truth come out? Tara, we're still here till the truth comes out.
Good morning, everybody. Yeah, that's cool. Hi, virtual Joe, by the way. That's totally fine. I get it. So, how was everybody's weekend? Ours was pretty eventful. So, on a bittersweet note, the big baby, the older babies, went to their new home. Hey, Flashman. So And they have new names. Their names are Finn and Fiona. Their names are now Finn and Fiona. Oh, Finnegan. Yeah. Is that better? I can't remember. And I'm holding it. Is that better? And can you hear the TV as well? Is that better? I turned the sound thing off, so maybe that's better. Um, okay, I will turn it down just a smidge because my daughter's watching K-pop Demon Hunters. Okay. So anyway, like I was saying, really, it's not working. Hang on.
Yeah, you are a little muffled. Hi, everybody. I'm here. Sorry I'm late. Story of my life.
Hang on. I'm working on it. You talk. I'm gonna figure this
All
out.
right. Well, okay. Thank you everybody for coming today. We very much appreciate it. I am TC Malin. My I cover true crime with Angie. We do trial watch, and then well, not right now. I'm taking a little hiatus, but normally on Mondays I do true crime. Wednesdays or current crime. Wednesdays I also do gangsters, and Fridays I do serial killer. Have all your notifications set for that. Uh, also, oh, donations are always appreciated, never required. And right now, I am taking any cash apps that are sent to me and putting them towards Miss Scarlett's trip to Dollywood, so she can have a good time with the rest of us. It's $TC Mayland. If you have any case suggestions, cases you want to hear about, a gangster or serial killer, please email me at tcmayland at gmail.com or me on X. So, and I'm going to go through and say hi to everybody. Hi, virtual juror. And that's fine. That's fine. We're just happy to have you when we can get you. Hi, Flash Flint. Van, can you hear me? Yeah, she was a little muffled. She's trying to get that all fixed right now. Right. Yeah, I thought she was a little muffled too. Good morning, Mitchell. And good morning, Jeff. Oh yeah, you guys, Jeff has got an awesome channel called Mad Store.
Can you hear me now?
So please, him and he has a co-host. So please make sure you go sub up to him.
Malin,
He is
can you hear
just
me?
over 300 subs now. So let's get him all the way up to 500. He deserves it. He works really hard. Okay, good. You can hear me. Good. So yes, please go sub up to our friend Jeff at MattStork83. We love him. All right. Angie is muted. So, all right. Today we are going to start the trial of Edrick Faust. For those who have not heard of it, he was
Malin, can you hear me? Is that better?
convicted of unaliving some really, really, really. I can hear you. There's still a little muffle in there, but not too bad. Cool. Thank you, Flash Fan. Yes. If you're talking, cannot hear you. Okay. She'll be back for that. So, yeah, we'll be talking about that Edrick Faust versus Georgia case today. So it's a hard one. He was accused of unaliving
Okay, can you hear
Tyra
me?
Banks back in thousands. Yes.
Why can't I hear you? Okay. Okay, can you hear me now?
Check your sound.
Can you hear me
I can
now?
hear you now. Yes. Can you hear me?
Is it better?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Stupid computer.
Okay. Yes. Stupid
Okay.
computers.
I had so
Okay.
much like set up to go. But anyway, so I guess I'll have to give me 1 sec. Keep them busy. I'm gonna get myself back together like I had.
Well, yeah. Flesh. Yes. I knew that I couldn't watch this case by myself, so I have not actually seen it yet. I do know that it's going to be a roller coaster of emotions, mostly red emotions. So I am prepared for that. I have all my keep me happy stuff around. But Angie has an announcement.
Yes, I do. So I
Cannot
don't
hear you.
normally. Is that better?
I think that's better. Yeah.
Okay. Normally, I do not grift hard. I usually just do the standard donations are appreciated, but they're never necessary. However, this one time I'm going to ask. We had an issue with our money that's supposed to come in like tomorrow. And I have 2 things I don't really care about Netflix and all that shit. That's, we can figure that stuff out later. But in order for me to keep streaming, especially next week, because Malin will be off on an adventure.
Yes, yes. So I will be down in Knoxville, Tennessee for the Dollywood meetup with Baker, the expert, White Rabbit, Dictionary Diva, another redhead, hot redhead too. I don't know if you guys seen her, but mhm. She's hot, but she's married. Valstorm, Shizwitz. No, Shizwitz not going. He has family obligations. Mo in the Deep, I believe, is going to be there. Scarlett, me, Joy, Hippie Chick, the other Mary B. We're all carpooling together to go there. Well, Joy will meet us there. So, yes. So we're all, that's why, I said at the beginning, any donations to my Cash App are actually going to be going to Scarlett so she can have a great trip too.
Okay. So, like I said, in order to keep streaming and to keep my phone on, which is very important because I have to keep in contact with my kids' school and everything, and I'm sure most of you are parents and you know how important that is. So, in total, I need $85 is what I need total. So
We can help her
if
out,
you can help,
guys. She
if
has a
you can
Cash
help
App.
out with that,
Oh,
Cash at me at AngieM1984 or Venmo me at, or AngieM1984 YT, Venmo at AngieM1984. So it would be so appreciated, and I would be forever grateful to everybody. So, big announcement. Like I was saying earlier, the big babies have gone home to their new owner. They are now living in Utah. And I don't know if you saw this earlier, but I did have this one up of them in their little carrier. And their owner said last night that they came out to play and then they ate and then they went back in the carrier.
But look at
So,
that behind them. Oh my gosh, they
right?
have a
They are set
playground.
up. Yeah,
Oh,
they are set up. And they have a new
yes,
friend that I'm sure they will meet at some point named Hazel because she has another cat named Hazel. Now, the other thing that happened yesterday, literally right before they went home, is drum roll, please.
I'm not
Ladybug
the
had
drummer
her
boy.
babies. So I tried
Yes.
to take the red stuff out as much as I could out of these first few photos, or first two photos, I should say, because yeah, if anybody's ever had a mama
Yeah.
cat, you
Because
know.
childbirth, no matter what your
Yeah, that too.
species is messy.
Yeah. Yes. So there's the three of them. And so here they are individually. We have the first girl. This is our firstborn. They don't have names yet. At least one will be Jelly Bean because Aria requested that, and I told my husband last night that we should go with the candy theme, and what the boy, which I'm going to show here in a minute, be Jelly Bean, and the girls be one be Lolly and the other be Pop. So this is the back of baby number one. She's gorgeous. And then we have Mr. Man. And if you look really closely, you will notice that on this hand or this paw, he has 6 fingers right here.
Yes. Oh,
And then
he's a
5 on this one.
pterodactyl.
Yes.
Oh, he's a pterodactyl. I love pterodactyl kitties. A friend of mine out in California has one. A Siamese cat that's a pterodactyl.
Nice. And then
Yeah.
this is our itty bitty baby. Oh, wait, actually, this is, hang on. Wait, do I not have the back of him? Oh, right here. Sorry. So there's the back of him. He's a little tabby, black and white tabby. And then we have our runt. So ironically, wait, no. Who is that? That's him. Never mind. This is the baby. There she is. This is our runt. And she is also a calico. So ironically, if you guys remember the older babies, we had 2 calicos and a somewhat tabby. And now we have 2 calicos and a tabby. So, it's fate. We're just meant to have calicos and a tabby. No, leave her be. Leave her be. Sit down. Watch your movie, please. I have a 4-year-old home because she's done with school. So, but anyway, okay, let's do a dance and then we will get into this trial, which, trigger warning, this trial is not easy. Not that to say that Lori's was, either of Lori's was. This one is a grape and murder, or unaliving, sorry, case out of Georgia. The defendant is Edrick Faust. It is a 2001 case. Tara Baker was a first-year law student at UGA, University of Georgia. law school. And my opinion, because I have seen this before, is they got the wrong guy. And I will leave it at that and let everybody, if you have not seen this trial, buckle up. And also, the judge in this case told Judge Canoni to hold her beer. No, what did I say? Hold her moonshine. That's what I said. Because if you think Bev was bad.
From what I've heard, they never even...
You're really choppy.
It's my internet. I'm working on it.
That's better. Yeah, that's better. Okay, so yeah, so
I was working on it.
buckle up,
It's my
buttercups.
internet going out. I'm actually watching
Okay.
myself appear and disappear on screen. Oh my god, son of a biscuit. It's a little overcast, and the way my house is set up, the kitchen is right in the middle, and the Wi-Fi router is out in the living room. But I stream back from my bedroom, so we have some Wi-Fi extenders. But when it's cloudy out, because Wi-Fi can't get through appliances without the
Right.
extender streaming
Yes,
it
Judge
on the other
Lott
end.
Mitchell.
So Judge Lott should not be a judge.
No. She's a lot. Pun intended. Okay, so. Right? I agree. I agree. I agree. She is a lot, yes. All right, let's do our Monday dance, and then let's get into this. Here we go.
Alarm says move, I swing my feet. Cold floor, hard truth, but I'm on my feet. Coffee in a paper cup, keys in my hand. Same old rush, same old road, still I got a plan. One deep breath, two step out, I know the way, I know it now. Still I rise with a grin, this week starts here. Let me in. Monday, I'm ready. Monday, I'm ready. Watch me roll right through it. I got fire in me. Monday, I'm ready. Monday, I'm ready. One day at a time, and I'm where I should be. Yeah. Monday, I'm ready. Monday, I'm ready. Monday, I'm ready. Yeah. Monday left a bruise, but you're still in the room. Kiss the sleep goodbye. Pull the daylight through. Phone on silent, shoes on, coffee in a paper cup. You don't need a miracle, just a little push up. Take a breath, count to three, let the heavy go. One more step, one more street, watch the whole thing grow. Tuesday already, Tuesday already. Look at you go, look at you go. Tuesday already, Tuesday already. Halfway to the glow. Bus stop, crack sidewalk, sandwich in your hand, small ones in your pocket. better than you planned. Laugh at the bad timing, wave it off and spin. Even on a Tuesday, you can hold it real. Yeah. Take a breath, count to 3, let the heavy go. One more step, one more street, watch the whole thing roll. Tuesday already, Tuesday already. Look at you go, look at you go. Tuesday already, Tuesday already. Halfway to the glow. If the sky turns gray, you still got a flame. Tiny little victories, answering your name. So raise it up, right where you are. Tuesday already, Tuesday already. Look at you go, look at you go. Tuesday already, Tuesday already. Halfway to the glow. Tuesday already, Tuesday already. You're brighter than the day.
My bad, y'all. I thought it was Monday. Whoops.
Yeah, little one's last day of school's today, and he actually gets out in 15 minutes, and then he's done for the summer. He didn't even have to be there until 10:45. The way
Oh, wow.
so the way their high school does it is they do the state testing at the end of April, and if you passed all, it is my day somewhere. If you scored a certain amount on that state testing, then you don't have to take final exams. But if you didn't score, it's not just a pass, it's a particular score. On 2 of the 8 parts, little one was just below. He passed the exam, but just below the final exam. So he had to take 2 finals. And since our school is K through 12, in the last week of school when they're doing the finals, the high school students are only allowed to be there during the time that they're taking a final.
So fun times.
Yeah.
Just FYI for everybody.
Keep track of that schedule.
Right. Just FYI for everybody. If you're interested, there is a Karen Reed. Oh, it's the it's Aiden and Karen's case. There is a conference at 2 p.m.
Mm-hmm.
And Kyle Sharkey posted the 2 p.m. Eastern, that is. Yeah, yes. Kyle Sharkey posted the Zoom, so.
Yeah, I could, let me grab that real quick. Dang, my friends like to post a lot. Billy Bush has Bill Maher on.
Oh, fun.
Oh my gosh. All right, Kelsey and Justin's hearing today. The judge took everything under advisement.
Okay. I don't know if anybody streamed it or not.
It wasn't streamed.
That's kind of what I figured, but I think Michael Bryant was there because I know they're talking about it on their show tonight. So
I have no idea if I'll even be home when they go. 'Cause my husband's last client today is at 5. Well, yes, Stephen. I'm sure there'll be plenty of serving candidates. I'll be cycling through today too. And
Okay,
my
so
husband's last client at 5, but then we're going out to Phantom Fireworks and starting to buy our 4th of July fireworks tonight.
oh.
So I don't know.
Yeah,
if
we
I'm
don't
gonna-
ever buy any. We just go to the town fireworks show. So, and then we
Yeah,
watch the
but
fireworks
then
like around us. So,
well, see, yeah, we do. So every year we go all out on the 4th. My husband is a huge kid, so we have a lot of fun. And yes, our neighbors do come out of their houses and sit and watch our fireworks show. And we always do have a grand finale. Usually it's like a 205 shot
sheesh.
national grand finale. Now you don't want to know how many we're starting tonight to buy our 4th of July fireworks because we get great coupons from Phantom Fireworks because we spend so much money there. Like tonight, it's buy one of those large fireworks and get 2 free.
Oh wow.
And I
All
do
right,
understand that. Before we started this, we did talk to all of our neighbors first to make sure that it was okay, that it didn't do this. So, yes, we're always very respectful to that. I mean, I don't know though. Is TV doing his regular show tonight?
yes.
Well, that means Danny will be going live too. I don't, God, I don't know. Kind of not.
And speaking of which, might have a bonus talk shite night episode this week. Possibly Wednesday. Just barring anybody else really big going live. Well, the only one I really don't go against who's really big is Aiden, honestly. But
Yeah. I mean, when I do
so,
my solo streams, that mine are at 10:30 in the morning. So
yeah,
my 2 big ones are Melanie, well, 3, Melanie Broker or Broken.
Baker.
Melanie Broken,
Yeah,
yeah, and sometimes Will during the day.
yeah.
But usually,
Yeah.
we don't do the M80s. We just do the aerials, mostly aerials. We do some rubbing candles and stuff. And then we always have, and we always do a backyard war before we start our fireworks. And we fill up, gosh, I can't, thousands of water balloons. And then we have smoke bombs. And so
Oh,
the
wow.
kids are ready. I know. Okay. They're throwing, the kids are throwing the water balloons. We're throwing the smoke bombs into the mix of it's adult, and we're teams. So, and the team that's wettest at the end loses. They don't lose much. They
That's
just lose
great.
bragging rights for a year. That's all. The winner don't get
Yeah.
nothing.
All right, let's get started with.
Holy moly! Is that toilet still alive? I see that. So I know one of those cherry bombs took out an entire glove box and my cousin's Jeep.
Oh, wow.
He was the dumb fool to put it in there lit. All right. So without further ado, you don't know. Oh my God.
Oh, shit.
Cheesy carrots.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah. I have no doubt. Oh, well. I mean, I was a little shit, but all right, guys, without further ado, we're going to go ahead and get into the opening statements.
Yeah. I put it on 1.5 for right now. If we need to go faster, we'll go faster. If we need to go slower, we'll go slower.
Sounds
So
good.
here we go.
Of your skill and knowledge without favor or affection to either party,
And
provided you are
why
not
is there
discharged.
no sound?
Oh, I was hearing it.
I couldn't. What the heck, man?
From the consideration of the case submitted. You shall
I cannot hear
well
it.
and truly
Hang
try the
on.
issue formed upon this bill of indictment between the state of Georgia and Edrick Faust.
Stop screen.
I believe it, Flash fan. Oh my gosh. She's a Garrett's. That's funny. I never thought of stuff like that, but
Technical difficulties. Bear with me.
yeah, you're the only one who wasn't hearing it. We all heard it. Oh yeah, well, while she's getting it all fixed, I also want to say thank you so much, you guys, for sharing out my channel last week. We got up to 137 subs. So not only did we hit our goal of 130, but we surpassed it by 7, getting us to a new goal of 140, and we're only 3 away from that. So I appreciate every single one of you who sits here, listens to us day in and day out, who sits here, who shares us. So I definitely appreciate it.
I'm going to refresh one more time. Give me 1 second.
You're a silly Flash fan. So, yeah. Also, I put out a post today on my X and on my YouTube channel. I am not going to be doing any of my solo shows in case you didn't hear that this week or next week. I am currently deep diving into one that really hits me hard. And so that I'll be back into those solo streams starting June 8th. And next week, I'm going to the Yes, Flash Fan is Naughty Naughty. And next week I am going to the Dollywood Creator Meetup, meet and greet to meet some of my favorite creators.
Why am I not hearing it? Oh my gosh, it's so annoying.
Might need to check your sound settings and settings.
Is that under audio?
So you go to the window screen, go to your settings. Wait for it to pull up. Okay. You would go to Bluetooth. Because are yours Bluetooth to your computer?
Yes.
I can't hear you. Okay, there. But in the if you can hear me in the settings, under recommended settings, once you hit on settings, you should have display, camera, and sound. And you go to the sound and make sure it's on. Yes, but Baker News production. You were definitely a different kid.
Okay, hang on.
Me too. Me too. I am a fat kid disguised in a skinny person's body.
I still can't hear it, even. Hang on.
Verdict give according to the evidence.
Yeah, I can't hear it. Can
So help
everybody
you God,
else
or
hear
upon
it?
your affirmation, please respond by saying I do.
I do.
Thank you. You all
Yes.
may be seated.
So
And ladies and
annoying.
gentlemen, everybody tends to sit.
Yeah. Yeah, chat's hearing it. I'm hearing it. You know, when I play videos, I can't hear them.
Really?
Yeah. I just sit and watch and pretend I can.
Okay, so what did you say to go to?
All right, so your little, the little four square window screen at the bottom of the toolbar,
Yeah.
go there, and it'll pop up with a bunch of apps. You can see the settings app.
Yeah.
Go there.
Okay.
I'm going with you, so it's what's going on. Okay. So you see on the left side it has all that, and then on the right side it should have just different like quick places to go.
Yeah.
All right, under recommended settings you should see a sound setting.
Wait, recommended setting?
On the first page, when you hit the settings and you go to the home page of settings, here, I'm going to do this. Okay. Yeah. No, I don't want to do that. It's got my full name on it. I can't do that. I was going to share the screen, but it's got my last name on there. But you should see a sound setting under recommended settings. Mine says camera, display, sound are the three recommended settings. Do you see that?
No. Hang on.
Are you
Let me.
on the home page of your settings?
Yeah, general camera, audio, visual effects, recording, hotkeys, layout, guests. That's what I got.
No, not StreamYard. The bottom of your
you.
screen. No, not YouTube. Your
Oh,
computer.
sorry.
It's the four squares at the bottom of your screen in that toolbar.
Yeah.
Go there.
Okay.
Okay, you see all the apps at the top.
Yeah.
Hit your settings app. That's the settings you want to go into.
You said sound, right?
Yes. And make sure the sound is set to your headphones. Yes. We're here for your entertainment. Honestly, I'm having such an off day.
Okay, I figured it out. Thank you.
You're welcome. No problem.
All right, let's see if this works now.
Sit in the same seat when they come back out from the
Still
jury room,
not
but you all
hearing
can sit
it.
wherever you choose.
What the
Sit-
actual fuck?
I don't know. Is it input?
Would it be input or output? It'd be input, right?
No. Output.
Okay.
You want to hear it.
Yeah, I know.
That's output.
Okay.
It's going
output.
out of the computer into your headset.
Hello. Why is it not letting me test it? Ugh. I am so sorry, guys.
It's fine, but why don't you go ahead and run the videos so that we can watch it while you work on your sound settings?
Okay.
You don't have assigned seats. If anybody is having difficulty hearing, please raise your hand, let us know. If anyone needs a break for any reason, please raise your hand and let us know. Is the state ready with regard to State of Georgia versus Edrick Lamont Faust, SU 24 CR 0547?
State's ready, Judge.
Is the defense ready?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, you are now going to hear opening statements. And opening statements are exactly what they sound like. They are the opening remarks of the attorneys, where it is their opportunity to tell you what they believe the evidence is going to show you. I'm going to caution you now, and I'm going to caution you at the end of the trial, that anything said by the attorneys, whether it's the opening statements or the closing statements or arguments by the attorneys, are not to be considered as evidence. Mr. Yelman-Chile, you have the floor. Or Mr. Bull.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Yes.
We tested this earlier. My screen should show.
I don't know.
Come on. I can hear it now, y'all. We're back. Woohoo! Okay.
Good. Yeah, that's what I've heard.
Is that what you're looking for? Very good. You may proceed, sir.
Since it started. That's not much. Who killed Tara Baker? Obviously, by now, ladies and gentlemen, you know what that's what this case is about. But before we get to know who killed Tara, it's important to know a little bit more about her. Tara Louise Baker was a bright, young, 23-year-old from Lovejoy, Georgia. And when she woke up on the morning of January the 19th, 2001, she had her whole life in front of her. She was a first-year law student here at the University of Georgia, and she had a wonderful circle of family and friends. Ladies and gentlemen, the next day, Saturday, January the 20th, it actually would have been her 24th birthday. And in the early morning hours of January the 19th, 2001, Tara's promising future came to a violent and abrupt end. She was sexually assaulted, she was stabbed, she was strangled, and she was left for dead on her bedroom floor. Her bed was set on fire. A fire, ladies and gentlemen, that smoldered for a considerable amount of time before it finally erupted through the roof of the house that she shared with two friends at 160 Fawn Drive here in Athens, Clarke County. On that morning, Tara's life ended. And what started was a 2.5-decade-long saga that has hung over the Baker family and hung over this entire Athens community like a specter. Ladies and gentlemen, this trial represents the final chapter in that tragic saga. The chapter where the state will prove to you, beyond a reasonable doubt,
Should I make it go faster?
Edrick Faust is guilty of extinguishing the bright light.
Actually, I think this is
35 years ago, where the state will show that he is
fast
guilty as
enough. I'm
charged
having a
of
hard
the
time.
crimes in this indictment.
So
Okay.
So you've heard the indictment a few times by now. Judge Lott read it in its entirety at the beginning of jury selection. The judge also just went briefly over what the charges are again here this morning. I'm not going to spend too much time going through the indictment itself right now. There'll be a time and a place for that at the end of the trial. But again, ladies and gentlemen, you know now that the defendant, Mr. Faust, is charged with 12 counts. Count 1, malice murder. Counts 2 through 5, felony murder. Count 6, burglary. Count 7, aggravated sodomy. Count 8, rape. Count 9, aggravated assault. Count 10, aggravated sodomy. Count 11, arson in the first degree. And count 12, possession of a knife during the commission of a felony. All those charges stem from the morning of January the 19th, 2001. And I expect that that's going to become clear over the course of this trial. Ladies and gentlemen, these are obviously heinous crimes. And in order to prove them, and to prove that the defendant is the person who committed them, the state is going to have to present some very grisly evidence. And that's going to come in the form of both testimony and photos. Ladies and gentlemen, some of this trial is going to be difficult. But it's unfortunate, but it's necessary. I just wanted to give you a heads up. On January the 19th of 2001 at 11:22 a.m., Athens 911 started receiving telephone calls in the area of Deer Park regarding a fire at 160 Fawn Drive. Now, if you're not familiar with Deer Park, just to give you a little bit of reference, if we head, make sure I've got my orientation right, down Lexington Road, away from downtown, heading out towards Oglethorpe County. When you get past, I guess, Gaines School, Tuxton United Methodist Church is there on the left, right off Lexington. And the road immediately past Tuxton United Methodist Church, before you get to the Walmart, is Cooper Road. So again, heading that direction from downtown, left on Cooper Road, past the church. And then actually Deer Park, which is where Fawn Drive is located, is just on the right. And so when they get this call at 11:22 in the morning, the fire department is immediately en route. The firefighters actually kick in the door, the front door to Tara's house because it was locked. And when they did so, they encountered smoke in the main living room area of the house. And I'm going to, in just a few minutes, not yet, going to be able to show you what the inside of that house looked like. So these firefighters kick in the door, and the first thing that they notice, apart from the smoke, is back in the right corner, which is where the kitchen is located. Through the smoke, they can actually see the eyes of the stove. It's one of those old school stoves that has the circular heating element. They can see those glowing red. And so through the smoke, they go over there to the stove. They realize that the knobs that would turn on and off those eyes have actually been removed from the stove itself. And so the firefighters put those knobs back on and turn the stove off. They open the back door to the house to ventilate, to help start getting the smoke out of the room. To this point, I don't think they've completely ascertained exactly where the fire was coming from. The back left bedroom of the house, and there's actually a bathroom door right next to it, it'll make sense in a few minutes, are closed. And so they go over there and they kick those doors in as well. And when they kick open that bedroom door, they are immediately met with flames rushing out over their heads. Firefighters enter and extinguish that fire. And in that moment, ladies and gentlemen, they discover Tara. She's naked. She's in between the mattress and the footboard to her bed. The footboard had been ripped away from the bed frame itself. So she's in that little V-shaped space in between. They notice a computer cord, what appears to be a computer cord, is wrapped around her neck. And so realizing what they've seen, the firefighters back out and turn the scene over to the police. And law enforcement does arrive. And so what we have here, ladies and gentlemen, is a sketch made by Athens Clarke County Police as to the interior of 160 Fawn Drive. I won't spend but a couple minutes going over it. The front door here is at the bottom with the arrow pointing up. Again, you see the kitchen in the back right with the stove, which is what the firefighters reported seeing glowing red when they came in the door. And what I want to focus on is what's in the top left of that diagram, what is referred to as bedroom 3. That was Tara's room. And you can see bedroom 3 has a bathroom connected to it, and then there's a door leading both from the bathroom, a door leading to the living room, one leading into Tara's room. So that's the basic layout of 160 Fawn Drive. You can see there's a back door, which again has the arrow pointing down, and right next to that is a window that is situated right above their dining room table. You're going to see photos that will also help kind of explain the layout of 160 Fawn Drive. So that's the house as a whole, and this is Tara's room as the police encounter it. And again, I've tried to explain, but I think this does a better job showing exactly the orientation of her body inside that bedroom in the back left of 160 Fawn Drive. So again, you can see the footboard having been ripped away from the frame and her body lying in between. So upon arrival, Athens Clarke County Police starts processing the scene. I expect you're going to hear from a number of witnesses that Tara's body, despite having obviously been in a room that was consumed by fire, her hair was actually still intact. I expect you're going to hear that several witnesses actually recall the smell of shampoo still coming from her hair. Again, there was a printer cord wrapped around her neck. I believe the printer itself was there in the room. And there's one thing that the police noticed that firefighters hadn't, was that Tara actually had a stab wound to the right side of her neck. And I think it was on the diagram. The knife was right underneath her body with blood on it. Officers also noticed a clock on the wall in Tara's room. That clock had stopped at 9:32. In processing the scene, officers noted that it appeared as if the doors and windows had been wiped clean. There's a screen to the back, that back window, the one that's right next to the back door, that showed signs of having been tampered with. And I expect there's probably going to be some confusion about exactly where that screen was when the firefighters arrived and when law enforcement arrived, but we'll get to that. Ladies and gentlemen, at 160 Fawn Drive, I submit that the evidence is going to show that any physical evidence that could have conceivably been helpful was collected. As an example, I think you're going to hear they even took the drain assembly out of her bathtub. A little bit more about the fire. I expect you're going to hear evidence that the bed, Tara's bed, was the source of that fire. And a little bit more, actually, I expect you're going to hear that there was a blanket that had been in the living room on the back of a recliner. That blanket had been removed from the recliner, taken over to the stove, set on fire, and then thrown on Tara's bed. I expect you're going to hear that actually still some remnants of that blanket on the stove itself. In learning about the processing of the scene, I expect you're also going to hear that there were no fingerprints of any evidentiary value that were taken in the house or off of Tara's body. I expect you're going to hear that hairs were collected from her body and from her room. And I also expect you're going to hear that her laptop was missing. The next thing I want to talk a little bit about, ladies and gentlemen, is the canvas of the neighborhood. By canvas, I mean police getting out and knocking on doors and seeing what if anything, people had seen that morning. That was obviously done in this case to a significant degree. I expect you'll hear one witness recalled seeing a white male running in the area, open area behind Tara's house and near Tara's house around 7:45 that morning. I expect you're going to hear multiple witnesses talk about describing a black male with an orange shirt or sweatshirt at various places in Deer Park around 8 o'clock to 8:15 that morning. I expect you're going to hear one witness who described smelling a faint odor of smoke as he was leaving for work around 8:40, 8:45 that morning. At the time, ladies and gentlemen, there's just not much to go on as it related to that canvas. The next thing I'd like to talk about is the autopsy. Tara's body was taken over to Atlanta to the Georgia Bureau of Investigation's Department of Forensic Sciences the next day, Saturday the 20th, her birthday. And an autopsy was conducted by a medical examiner named Dr. Edrick Faust. And here's where the evidence I submit made it get kind of difficult. There were photos that were taken at that autopsy. And you're going to see some of those photos when Dr. Faust testifies. It's going to be hard. You're going to see and hear about contusions surrounding Tara's vagina and anus. You're going to hear that stab wound that the officers noted when they got in to her bedroom had actually severed her jugular vein. You're going to hear about the ligature mark that was encircling her neck and that her hyoid bone, which is a bone in your neck, had been broken. You'll hear about a subarachnoid hemorrhage to her head, which is indicative of blunt force trauma. You're going to hear about defensive type wounds to her hands. Dr. Faust, after conducting the autopsy of Tara Baker, listed her cause of death as ligature strangulation and a stab wound, with another significant condition being blunt force trauma to the head. He ruled the manner of death, obviously, a homicide. As part of the autopsy, a sexual assault kit was taken, based on the way Tara's body was found, based on Dr. Faust's observations. So a sexual assault kit involved oral, vaginal, and rectal swabs of Tara and smears that were created based on those swabs. And I expect over the course of this trial, there's going to be a great deal made about how one of those swabs was mislabeled. I expect the state's going to be able to clear that up as this trial unfolds. As part of the autopsy, head hair and pubic hair was retained, and fingernail and toenail clippings were taken. The next thing of significance that I'd like to talk about is some of the early forensics that were done in connection with this case. You're going to hear from Jennifer Corsi. At the time, back in 2001, Ms. Corsi was a forensic biologist at the GBI Crime Lab. She actually now works at the U.S. Army's Criminal Investigation Laboratory. She made a career out of this type of work. Ms. Corsi is the one who actually did chemical testing on that sexual assault kit, the one that we just talked about. You'll hear that her testing failed to reveal the presence of any seminal fluid, and that she took microscopic examinations of the vaginal smears and observed no spermatozoa or partially intact spermatozoa. And so, ladies and gentlemen, based on the existing technology and the existing protocols in existence back in 2001, there was nothing further that could be done with that sexual assault kit. I expect you'll hear that Ms. Corsi, then Fincher, so if I use both names, please forgive me, did confirm that the blood on Tara's fingernails, the only DNA on those fingernails belonged to Tara, that there was blood on the knife, and the DNA from that blood also only belonged to Tara. And there was no blood on the toenails that were taken. Not necessarily Ms. Corsi, but other forensics going on in the early days of the investigation. There were attempts to obtain fingerprints of any sort of evidentiary value, nothing to go on. I mentioned the hairs. Submit to you, there was nothing that would help in the investigation at that time. I'm going to shift gears a little bit and talk a little bit more about Tara. In January of 2001, again, she's living at 160 Fawn Drive. She had two roommates, Ashley Peavy, now Ashley Hall, Valerie Lowe, now Valerie Lang. And I say that because, again, I might refer to them as both. Just wanted to get out in front and explain why that might be the case. So the three of them, Tara, Ashley, and Valerie, had moved into 160 Fawn Drive in August of 2000. All three of them were in grad school at UGA, but pursuing different programs. You know, Tara obviously was studying law. I expect you're going to hear evidence about Tara's morning routine. If she had a 9:30 class, which I expect you're going to hear she did that Friday, property law class on the 19th, then she's a pretty early riser, up around 6:30 in the morning. First thing she'd do is take a shower. Expect you'll hear she'd come out and eat her breakfast. Every morning, same thing, cheese grits. And she'd come out and eat those cheese grits, her hair's still wet. And then she'd go back into her room and sit on the floor in front of her bed to blow dry her hair. And that took a while, ladies and gentlemen, because I expect you're going to hear Tara had a lot of hair. I expect you're also going to hear about how Tara was trying to buckle down in January of 2001. As that new semester at the law school had gotten underway, she was spending less time at home and more time at the law library. But Saturday was her birthday. And on Friday night, she was going to go out and have some fun with some friends. They were going to go to the Winery, which is a bar downtown on Broad Street. I don't know if it's still there, but it was in 2001. We'll talk about Tara's last hours. Go through what we know about Tara on Thursday, January the 18th. We know that both Ashley and Valerie were leaving for the weekend. They were both leaving that Thursday. Ashley left late that afternoon. She and Tara had been at home together before Ashley left. We know that from approximately 7:30 to approximately 9:30, Tara was at the law library here on North Campus, not too far from the Arch. She's there with a friend named Katie Lonstein. Around 9:30 that night, Katie leaves, goes home. I think there was a discussion about, hey, call me when you get there, make sure you get home safe. And Katie indicated that she would do that, but she forgot. Why is that significant? Because Tara called her. Tara called her at 9:46 that night to make sure Katie had gotten home. And ladies and gentlemen, that is the last time that anyone is known to have spoken to Tara. Friday, again, January the 19th. I think it was kind of a cold, overcast, rainy day, kind of day that it seems like we've been having a lot of those lately. Again, expect you're going to hear evidence that the neighbor across the street smelled smoke, excuse me, around 8:45, 8:45 as he was going to work. Point out once again, Tara misses property class. It started at 9:30 that morning. The clock on the wall stopped at 9:32. And then again, ladies and gentlemen, 11:22 is when the fire is reported at 160 Fawn Drive. I'm going to talk a little bit now about Chris Melton. Some of you have heard his name already in jury selection. Chris Melton was Tara's boyfriend. You're going to hear a lot about the relationship between Tara and Chris leading up to January the 19th of 2001. What I expect that you're going to hear is this was a relatively typical relationship between two very busy people in their early 20s. Tara and Chris met when they both attended college at Georgia College in Milledgeville. It's now Georgia College and State University in the late 90s. Tara and Chris were introduced through mutual acquaintances and hit it off, and they began to date. When Tara graduated from Georgia College, she went back home to the Lovejoy area. And for those of you who don't know, Lovejoy is off I-75 south of Atlanta, and she got a job at a law firm there. Chris didn't finish school. He also moved back home in with his parents as well. That's in Covington. When Chris moved home, his mom told him he had to get a job. And so he got one. Chris became a plumber. And so at this time, Tara and Chris are in a long distance relationship because Covington, Lovejoy, about an hour and a half apart, maybe a little bit less. Tara moved to Athens, I believe in 1999, when she got a job at a law firm here in town. So at that time, Tara's in Athens, Chris is still in Covington, and so they're still kind of doing the long distance thing, right? Maybe not quite as long, but certainly not in the same town. And they found it hard to find time to get together. And so Chris moved to Athens. He got an apartment with a roommate at a place off Millage Avenue. And he was commuting back and forth to work. Most of his work was in the Loganville, Gwinnett County area. But I expect what you're going to hear is that Chris and Tara were trying to figure out how to have an adult relationship when they both had a work life and other things going on that they had to manage. As I mentioned before, Tara started law school in August of 2000. I expect you're going to hear that during that fall semester, that first semester, Ashley and Valerie are going to mention to you that Tara was spending a lot of time at Chris's apartment. Now, that doesn't mean Chris wouldn't come over to her house too. He did, maybe just not as often. But when they did, they'd spend the night at each other's house, both at Millage Avenue and at Fawn Drive. This is normal relationship stuff. Moving into the spring semester, January 2001. Now remember, Tara was trying to buckle down, more time in the library. Well, at that time, Chris also had good things going on. I mentioned that he had taken up plumbing. He was working for a company, but around this time, he started maybe thinking about going out and doing work on his own. You know, his business was mainly in the Loganville, Gwinnett area. And so at this time, you know, he's using his truck, not a company one. It's his gas, his time spent commuting. And if he's traveling back and forth from Athens to Loganville every day, he's not making money. And the reason why I point all that out, ladies and gentlemen, because I expect the evidence is going to show that at that time, Chris moved back in with his parents in Covington. So he could spend more time working and less time traveling to and from. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I expect that others might have thought that the relationship between Chris and Tara was starting to fizzle. Again, I think the evidence is going to show that this was just a relationship between two young people whose presents and whose futures were still being figured out, with some highs and some lows, but nothing out of the ordinary. In fact, I expect you're going to hear that Chris had gotten Tara a very sentimental Christmas present just a few weeks prior to her death, and it made her really happy. He was going to come to Athens Saturday to celebrate Tara's birthday with her. Chris saw the potential for a future between them. Others may have made assumptions otherwise. But the bottom line, ladies and gentlemen, is evidence will show you that there is nothing to suggest their relationship was in a bad place. Let's talk about what Chris was doing on January the 19th of 2001. As I just got done explaining, he spent the night before, Thursday night into Friday, at his parents' house in Covington. And from 7:15 that morning until long after Tara's body is discovered, his whereabouts are accounted for. At 7:15 or thereabouts, a coworker named Josh McCurdy came over to Chris's house, or Chris's parents' house, to be clear. And Josh was with Chris all day. There's a brief period of time around lunch, 1:30 to 2:30-ish, where they were not together. 1:30, obviously, after the fire at Fawn Drive. But other than that, they were together all day. Made numerous stops throughout the day. You're going to hear a little bit about some of those stops. What I expect the evidence is going to show is that at 9:08 that morning, Chris went into a Wachovia in Loganville. Wachovia, for those of you who don't know, now Wells Fargo. And at 9:12 that morning, he withdrew $480 from the teller. I expect you're going to hear about some visits that he made to a place called Truck Customs. Remember, Chris is starting to do his own thing. He's got a truck. He's in the plumbing business. He needs a pipe rack. He needs a ladder rack. So he'd gone to this place called Truck Customs. First stop time, I think maybe around 10 o'clock. Second time later in the afternoon. And it's at that second trip to Truck Customs, ladies and gentlemen, where Chris gets a call from Tara's mother. Something's happened in Athens. You need to come over. Ladies and gentlemen, all those facts were established fairly early in the investigation. Now, you're going to hear about Chris's reaction when he got the call from Tara's mom about something happening in Athens, how Josh actually had to drive him in his own truck to Athens. And even with all of this, ladies and gentlemen, with those facts being established early in the investigation, Chris was always under the microscope as it related to Tara's murder. He was asked to give blood. He was asked to give a sample of his head hair. He was asked to give a sample of his pubic hair. Chris was subjected to repeated interviews by law enforcement. Every time anything's ever been asked of him, his answer's always been the same: whatever you need. The evidence will show that Chris has been fully cooperative for over 25 years. I'm going to try and move a little bit quicker now because I think I'm taking longer than I intended. But there is a lot of other investigation going on in this case, ladies and gentlemen. This is a 20-plus-year-old case. The state is not going to present to you everything that was done over the course of this 23-year investigation. From a period of time, several months after Tara's death in 2001 until 2024, we're going to talk more about that soon, there was a lot of work being done on this case. But there was nothing that would point the police in the direction of Tara's killer. There are tens of thousands of pages of police reports, records. There are hundreds of hours of interviews. It would take months to present all that in court, and we're not going to do it. And in so doing, we're not trying to hide anything. We're being mindful that it is an absolute impossibility to show you every lead that was chased down and every lead that became a dead end. About the dozens of persons of interest who were identified but ultimately ruled out. Hard work, frankly, just didn't result in any relevant evidence. One example, in 2010, the ligature, the printer cord, and the knife were retested for DNA, not just the blood, to see if there was any touch DNA on those items. And once again, only Tara's DNA was found. I expect over the course of this trial, you're going to hear about some missteps and some unanswered questions. Remember that window frame I talked about earlier? Well, the window frame was obviously taken into evidence back in 2001, but now, 25 years later, it's missing. And that's unfortunate. But what is fortunate is that you're still going to hear about the processing of that Windows frame that was done back in 2001 and how, again, there were no prints recovered. You'll hear that Tara's laptop, the one that I mentioned had been taken from her room, has never been found. And lastly, as far as unanswered questions go, I'd submit to you the evidence can show that no one investigating this case has been able to quite figure out exactly how the defendant got in and out of 160 Fallen Drive. Was it the kitchen window with the frame that showed signs of tampering? Was it the back door? To this day, ladies and gentlemen, there's no definitive answer. And the state's not going to be able to show you the answer to that in this trial either. That fact is not necessary to prove the defendant's guilt. And so again, with all this investigation going on, and
I'm sorry, but when you have a case and you're filing a case against somebody, shouldn't you have proof that they were actually in the place where that crime was committed? Because other than what was inside her body, there was no evidence of Edrick Faust being supposedly inside her body. There was no other evidence of him being in that house. And Judge Lott wouldn't allow the testimony about Tara being, this is to come, but Judge Lott wouldn't, or it might have been pre-trial, I don't remember, but wouldn't allow the testimony of somebody who saw Tara that night at a Mexican restaurant or something that I think Edrick might have been at. So I don't know, like, there's so much about this case that just infuriates me to no end. I just, anyway, sorry. Right. Yeah, it's this case is it's like Karen Reed trial 1, where like the first 3/4 of it, they focus on clearing Chris Milton. They don't even bring up Edrick Faust for the first bit of it. Like, it's so stupid. Like, anyway, sorry. Back to this.
leads being developed, the case goes cold. Something happened that changed all of that in 2023. Something called the Coleman-Baker Act was signed into law by Governor Brian Kemp. In case you hadn't figured out, the Baker part of that act is named after Tara. This is a law designed to address cases exactly like this one, where all leads have been exhausted and no likely perpetrator has been identified. What the law does is it directs new eyes to be placed on the file. See if all appropriate forensic testing and analysis was done in the first instance, or if additional testing might produce evidence or information relevant to the investigation. And so at this point, enter into our story agents Liz Bigham and Jeremy Howell with the Georgia Bureau of Investigation. Agent Bigham, Agent Howell are longtime agents with the GBI, and they joined that cold case unit after the law was enacted. In December of 23, they started looking at this case. And one of the first things they did was a dogged re-examination of all the physical evidence in Tara's case, including the sexual assault kit that had been taken at her autopsy. That kit was resubmitted for testing in February of 2024. And so, ladies and gentlemen, a lot's changed about DNA and the way DNA is tested from back in 2001. I expect you're going to hear that the sensitivity of that testing has improved greatly. And so, in February of 24, the crime lab was able to find first male DNA and then obtain a DNA profile from item 2I. It's going to get confusing. We can clear all this up later about the names of those items. 2I is labeled oral swab B. It's pretty confusing. And so, upon further testing of 2I, what they do is they separate the DNA into what's called fractions. I'm not going to get too much into the details of it now, but the idea is you're trying to separate the female DNA from the male DNA. 2I, the oral swab B, the first fraction is a match to Tara Baker. In the second fraction, there's a partial major profile of male DNA. And that DNA is not Tara Baker and is not Chris Melton. In case I haven't been clear, when I refer to a profile, what I'm, for lack of a better term, talking about is a DNA fingerprint. So when I talk about profiles, that's what I mean. But that profile, that partial major profile from item 2I, was eligible to be submitted into something called CODIS, C-O-D-I-S. That stands for the Combined DNA Index System. CODIS is a national database of known DNA profiles. I think that as of November last year, there are about 26 million known profiles in CODIS. And once that profile from item 2I was uploaded into CODIS, the way it works is it is routinely compared against the 26 million known profiles to see if any leads could be developed. On April 30th, 2024, there was a hit. And it was that DNA, again, matched from item 2I, and that hit was to the defendant, Edrick Faust. Ladies and gentlemen, that is the first time in 23 years and tens of thousands of pages of this law enforcement file that Mr. Faust's name shows up. So what do we know about Mr. Faust? He lived at 350 Cooper Road, and we talked about Cooper Road earlier. You can see it there. It's actually at the top of this picture. The star represents 160 Fawn Drive. I'll get more into that in just a minute. Cooper Road, again, at the very top, going horizontally in the picture. If you were to go left on Cooper Road, that's where you're going to run into Lexington Road, just to give you some orientation. Mr. Faust is living at 350 Cooper Road. 350 Cooper Road, ladies and gentlemen, is literally 585 feet from 160 Fawn Drive. So, next, what happens? Agents Bigham and Howell obtain a warrant to get Mr. Faust's buccal swabs, cheek swabs. And the purpose of that is to get a known sample of his DNA. CODIS, only lead, you got to confirm it. And again, the first fraction from oral swab B, Tara's profile, it's always Tara's profile, vaginal, oral A, oral B, we'll clear that up later. Always Tara's DNA in that first fraction. And in that second fraction, you're gonna hear about there being two profiles, but the major profile, the partial major profile from item 2I was a match to Edrick Faust. And that match, I might mess up the wording of it, was 1 in 800 quadrillion.
I have objection, Your Honor. And I have a motion. Outside words.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to have you go back into the jury room. Don't discuss the case. Thank you.
Move for mistrial again to preserve the record. But I would ask this, there are going to be more slides that use the same type of language. Obviously, when it occurs, I'm going to get up and move for mistrial again to preserve the record. But I would ask the Honorable Court to instruct the state to use accurate evidence that will come into, accurate descriptions of evidence that would come into evidence. this slide is not accurate. And the next two slides that involve true allele won't be accurate as far as the match language are.
Anything from the state before I make a comment?
I disagree with every assertion Mr. Cruz just made.
All right, thank you. Mr. Cruz, your comment is you used the word evidence. And I've already instructed the jury that anything said by the attorneys, including opening and closings and arguments by the attorneys, are not to be considered as evidence. This is not to be considered as evidence. It is part of the opening statement. I'm going to deny your motion.
Yes, ma'am.
Have you heard from them? All right. All right, very good. You can bring the jury out now. Thank you very much. All right, you all may be seated. Thank you. Mr. Bolden, you have the floor.
Thank you, Your Honor. As I was saying, 1 in 800 quadrillion. That is, if I got it right, an 8 followed by 17 zeros. That's not all that you're going to hear about as it relates to DNA testing that was conducted in 2024. You're going to hear a great deal about something called true allele. I am not going to go into it too in depth this afternoon, but basically, true allele is this high-tech software that uses something called probabilistic genotyping to decode very small or mixed samples of DNA from a piece of evidence. And again, I'm not going to go into all the nuts and bolts of true allele here because frankly, I just don't think I do a very good job. But you are going to hear from Ashley Hinkle. Ms. Hinkle is a forensic biologist at the GBI Crime Lab who is an expert in true allele. She'll give you a good explanation of what it is and how it works. And ultimately, you're going to hear that all 3 swabs from the sexual assault examination of Ms. Baker were analyzed using true allele. Again, that same swab, 2I, this is oral swab B. Again, the second fraction, separating male from female DNA. At least 2 individuals, we'll explain more later. Again, the major contributor based on the true allele results was Edrick Faust. The way true allele reports, ladies and gentlemen, is that the wording is significant. It's called a likelihood ratio. What Ms. Hinkle, I expect, is going to tell you that the likelihood of a match between Mr. Faust and the partial major profile in 2I is 30 octillion times more probable than a coincidental match to an unrelated person in the population. 30 octillion. Again, if I counted right, that is a 3 followed by 28 zeros. So 2J is another swab that was collected at the sexual assault kit from Dr. Falzon way back in 2001. We're going to explain more about what 2J is throughout the trial. First fraction, again, Tara, always Tara. The second fraction of 2J had the profile of at least 3 individuals. There's a match to Chris Melton. Make sure I get it right. 30 octillion times more probable than a coincidental match. And there's also a match to Edrick Faust. Likelihood ratio there.
Your Honor, I would renew my request. My objection.
Your motion is denied.
Yes, ma'am.
You may continue.
The match to Mr. Faust here is 70 billion times more probable than a coincidental match. Then also, ladies and gentlemen, you'll hear about true allele's analysis of the rectal swabs. Here, the second fraction had at least 3 individuals. There's a match to Chris Melton, a much lower number, 60,000 times more probable than a coincidental match. Going back, ladies and gentlemen, to 2J, the last one that I mentioned, it's a very important fact that I almost overlooked. Why would Chris's DNA be present in 2J? Well, I expect the evidence is going to show you that he and Tara had been intimate the weekend prior to her death. I expect that you'll hear that it's not uncommon for DNA to be found that far in the past, or when sex was known to have happened that far in the past. I expect you're going to hear the current guidelines for collection of evidence in cases like this is 120 hours. So that's 5 days. And again, Chris and Tara had been intimate the weekend before her death. So the rectal swabs, I don't want to spend too much time on it. Obviously, only Chris's DNA is found there. It's a very small amount. That's significant. You'll hear more about that later. Ladies and gentlemen, the evidence is going to be very clear that Chris and Tara were not engaging in anal sex. You're going to hear about a phenomenon known in the forensic community known as drainage. I guess an easier way to think about that is gravity. This is a known fact. Semen, just like any other physical object, is subject to gravity. And the vagina and the anus are in pretty close proximity. And remember how Tara's found in the floor of her bedroom. All right, so I'm nearing the end of our story. Armed with
I'm sorry, what? Malin, are you here? Because we gotta talk about this.
I am here. Oh. My husband had gotten home, so I went and talked to him for a minute. But I've been
Drainage.
listening.
Drainage.
Yeah. Oh,
Based on
yeah.
drainage, they're saying she didn't take a shower in 5 days.
Yeah. And if she didn't, that's a nasty bitch. And I don't think she was a nasty bitch. So I'm inclined to
Right.
believe she took a shower.
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, sorry.
No, you're fine. There's just aggravation city.
Yep.
Because
Okay. Here we
I have been listening. I'm just been saying things.
Okay, after the
that you
prosecution's opening, I need a dance break because
That's fine. That's fine.
it's
We can do
about
a
to
couple
get
of songs.
worse. It's
Uh-huh.
about to get worse.
Can I put in a song request? I mean, I love your music, don't get me wrong. I want to listen to a couple of your songs, but I do want to listen to It's Magic by Toy.
Okay, I will look it up while we're finishing up the.
Awesome. So 2 of your songs and that one from Toy should get us ready for the defense closing or opening. Because
Okay.
yeah. I'm going back to mute and off screen because I'm saying a lot of not nice things.
Me too.
But-
Okay, here we go.
All right. Roll tape.
their investigation to this point, Agents Bigham and Howell interviewed the defendant. That took place on May the 9th of 2024, and it happened at the Athens-Clarke County Police Department. Mr. Faust had been placed under arrest for the murder of Tara. He was read his rights, and he agreed to talk with him. Now, I'm not going to go into everything that was said over the course of that interview. You're going to see and hear the relevant portions of that interview. But just a note, Mr. Faust said that he'd been living at 350 Cooper Road off and on for 40 years, to include the time frame back in 2001. 350 Cooper Road was actually his stepmother's house. During the interview, Mr. Faust denies ever dating anyone in Deer Park, ever knowing anyone in Deer Park, or that anyone from Deer Park ever came over to his house. All that was said in this interview before he was actually told what the charges were for. And you're going to see, frankly, during this interview, that the evidence is going to show that this is pretty conversational nature between the defendant and Agents Bigham and Howell. And then at the end, they tell him what the charges were for. Agent Howell actually says, and he's referring to Tara here, "Don't you remember? It was kind of a big deal." Agent Howell offers, "If you can help us understand why your DNA is in that house, help us. I'm here to exonerate just as much as I am to hunt." And you'll hear the defendant's reaction. Ladies and gentlemen, at the beginning of my opening remarks, I talked about how this trial represents the final chapter in a long, sad saga for both the Baker family and for the Athens community. For decades, everyone who loved Tara wanted to know, Who killed Tara Baker? Ladies and gentlemen, Edrick Faust killed Tara Baker. Edrick Faust sexually assaulted Tara Baker. Edrick Faust set her house on fire. And now, the final chapter begins today. But the last few pages of this story haven't been written. At the end of the trial, we're going to hand you the pen, and you, the jury, will write those last few pages. And when you do, you'll have the evidence to write the correct ending to this horrible saga. Ladies and gentlemen, I didn't say the happy ending. That's not possible. The correct one. You'll have everything you need to know to write the ending that the facts support and that justice demands. An ending that finds, beyond a reasonable doubt, the defendant, Edrick Faust, is guilty as charged. Thank you.
Counsel for the defense, opening statement.
From Boston fog to courthouse stone, Aiden wore the truth like a coat. He dug through lies and copied files till the whole damn paper started to glow. He found the name of Officer John, found the edits, found the bloodless lines, found the hands that scrubbed the page and the grin they wore when they sold that lie. They said, let it sleep. They said, walk away, but Aiden kept the receipts in a drawer that shook all day. Never poke a turtle, never poke a turtle. Slow step, hard shell, truth crawls, but it hits like hell. Never poke a turtle, never poke a turtle. Commonwealth came with polished words and suits that fit a guilty frame. They leaned on names, they bent the facts, tried to bury John, then bury the blame. Aiden stood in the floodlit hall with his notes and a jaw like iron. He said, if you want this dead and gone, you'll have to kill every page I'm on. They locked the door. Poke a turtle, never poke a turtle. Slow step, hard shell, truth crawls, but it hits like hell. Never poke a turtle, never poke a turtle. You can hide for a while, but you can't hide forever.
We slid down that rabbit hole, found a crew that feeds the soul, laughing. Laughing, roasting, spilling tea. This wild fam was meant to be. It's like magic, pure magic, straight magic. Not some Hallmark movie scene. We're way too loud, we're way too keen. True crime jokes and midnight rants. We're chaos kings and spicy chants. It's like magic, pure magic, straight magic. Chat rats, we're the fam you can't ignore. Kicking down the crime chat door. Chat rats, clapping back, we bring the heat. Savage minds you can't defeat. Chat rats, raise a glass, we own the night. 10 for 20, puff puff pass, that's right. From every corner of the globe, dropping memes in every mode. Sass and sleuthing hand in hand. Chat rats running the whole damn land. It's like magic, pure magic, straight magic. We're loud, we're wild, we're never tame. Dropping jokes while we're solving games. True crime sleuths with a side of sass. Raise your glass, chat rats got class. It's like magic, pure magic, straight magic. Chat rats, we're the fam you can't ignore. Kicking down the crime chat door. Chat rats, clapping back, we bring the heat. Savage minds you can't defeat. Chat rats, raise a glass, we own the night. 10 for 20, puff puff pass, that's right. Chat rats, chat rats, who we are. Chat rats, where we at? Right here, what we do. Crack facts, code we use. 10 for 20, light it up, puff puff pass. Chat rats, we're the fam you can't ignore. Kicking down the crime chat door. Chat rats, clapping back, we bring the heat. Savage minds you can't defeat. Chat rats, raise a glass, we own the night. 10 for 20, puff puff pass, that's right. Chat rats, chat rats.
Tick, 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 boom. Tick, 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 boom. Tick, 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 boom. Pressure build, detonate. Tick, boom. Too late now, can't moderate. Tick, check him a flash. Let's go. Tick, everybody talking.
Sorry.
You're fine. Flash fan, it's okay. You know, the rules for my chat are very, 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 very light. Don't disrespect the other
mine too.
chatters. Don't disrespect the other chatters, and you're good. This case will make us angry and say a lot of things, and it's okay.
Yes.
You
I agree.
do not need to hold back. You won't get in trouble with me or Angie.
Yep.
Okay.
If you have not subscribed to Toy, who did those two songs, half quarter of which I played is Tick Tick Boom. Please go subscribe. She makes fantastic music and has inspired me to make music.
And I am dropping the link in the chats now.
Okay, so
Hired a lot of people to make music.
yes. I'm gonna do the grifting thing again because I'm poor, as Danny likes to say. But anyway, really, I normally don't ask for specific amounts or anything. We had a mess up with my son. My son's on disability. There was a mess up with his money. We won't be getting it right away this month. And we rely on that. We rely on that a lot because otherwise it's just my husband's disability. So I'm not looking for thousands and thousands of dollars. I'm just looking to see if maybe you guys can help me out so I can keep doing this. If you enjoy our streams, if you enjoy my channel, if you know, things like that. I really do need help with StreamYard this month, as well as keeping my phone on. That's the other big thing, because I still have 2 kiddos that are in school for a little, well, let's be honest, 3 days, but still. So you can cash at me at $$19 $1984 or Venmo at $1984. Like I said, I don't normally ask for specific things, and it would be so much appreciated, and I'd be forever grateful. But yeah, I'm gonna play one more song, and then we will get back to this. New music, by the way, inspired by the Aaron Spencer case. Yeah, so this one is called The Lone Oak Father. So here we go.
Old and she went out the window, siren scream inside my chest, black tire spinning on a dirt road, found that pickup parked alone in the pine trees. He had no right to breathe the air, he had no right to take what was hers. I saw the high beams, I saw the monster.
I bear no responsibility for how AI writes the song. Believe me, my eyebrows raised the first time I heard it. But I think it's a banger.
Baby, I'm gonna lay down. Oh, you okay? Tell her you got a hot off or you okay? Looks like you got a water. So, you don't need a coffee.
Hot mic.
Let's see what you doing over there. Yeah.
Okay, let's get back to this. Okay, I am calm. I am relatively calm because I know what's coming. All right, here we go, y'all.
My name is Attorney Ahmad Cruz, and I have the privilege and the honor of standing beside Mr. Edrick Faust during this case. First and foremost, I want to thank you all for your sacrifice and taking time away from your families, your jobs, and your very important matters to sit and listen to the evidence the state presents in this case. We intend to get you all home as quickly as possible. Once you have all the evidence that you need to make a decision and not a moment before. First off, you can see on your screens, I'd like to tell you what happened. You all sat through 5 days of jury service and no one ever explained to you what happened. Then we're going to talk about how this is a crime of opportunity, the evidence that you were here supporting that this is not, let me put it this way, you'll hear evidence supporting that this is a crime of opportunity. Then we'll get into Chris Melton's and Tara Baker's relationship and what the evidence will show there. That is going to be very important in this case to understand what was going on with Miss Baker and Mr. Melton before she passed. Then we're going to talk about then I'd like to talk about with you the initial investigation in this case. This investigation, when it came to Mr. Faust, that isn't the initial investigation, but this investigation, when it came to Mr. Faust, you may decide that this is one of the most thorough investigations in Georgia history. In fact, you will learn that this investigation reached a level of desperation. And at the end of this trial, you are going to have questions that the state is not going to be able to answer. And I believe during the state's opening, they admitted one, which is they cannot present evidence to you, or they cannot answer the question of how Mr. Faust would have gotten into Miss Baker's home. They also can't answer the question of when did Mr. Faust's DNA get in Miss Baker's body? They don't know. They won't be able to answer the question, how would Mr. Faust get away from Miss Baker's home unseen at the time of the morning that they said he committed this crime? The evidence will show that in Deer Park, Black people simply walking were reported. In fact, on January 19th, 2001, the day Miss Baker passed away, there were 3 individuals reported, two, but one person was reported twice. It was a Black male. He had a afro, and he was wearing a bright orange shirt. And the witnesses say, hey, he's just walking normally through the neighborhood. Is he looking around suspicious? No. Is there anything unique about him? No. Actually, when I pulled out my car to get out the driveway, he stopped for me. So the state won't be able to answer if they're reporting individuals walking through the neighborhood. How did Mr. Faust get away unseen in the middle of the morning? And the last question that the state won't be able to answer for you. If Mr. Faust killed Miss Baker, why was the hair that was found on her body, around her body, in her hand, and on the murder weapon of Caucasian origin? You will hear evidence in this case that there is not a shred of evidence that puts Mr. Faust, let alone a Black person, in Miss Baker's home. All of the evidence, including the gift Miss Baker left in her hand for police, it's Caucasian hair. Now, the state, these questions have to be answered with evidence, not speculation, not with sensationalized media coverage, and not with unsupported conclusions. These are questions the state must answer for you with evidence and proof. The state may spend a lot of time talking about Mr. Faust's DNA. That is not an issue in this case. DNA is not at issue in this case. But they may spend a lot of time talking about Mr. Faust's DNA being present among, as they presented to you, the multiple DNA profiles that were found and identified. But you may find yourself asking this question at the end of the state's presentation of evidence. How does Mr. Faust's DNA simply being in Ms. Baker's body, along with someone else's DNA profile, establish that he is the person that killed Ms. Baker? And this is why you all are here today. This is why we are here today. We're not here to talk about, and the state is going to present this type of evidence. We are not here to talk about how bad of a person Mr. Faust may have been, how horrible of a boyfriend he may have been. That's not evidence in regards to what they must present to you to prove that Mr. Faust is the individual that committed these acts that they've chosen to charge him with in the indictment. We're here to talk about and find out whether the state's evidence proves beyond a reasonable doubt that Mr. Faust committed the crimes that he's charged with. That's it. That is why we are here. And in this trial, the question is not who killed Ms. Baker. That is not the question that anyone is asking you to determine. But again, the question is simply, does the state's evidence that they present to you prove that Mr. Faust, proves beyond a reasonable doubt that Mr. Faust is the person responsible for burglarizing Ms. Baker's home? He's charged with burglary in the indictment, sexually assaulting Ms. Baker, and killing Ms. Baker. That's the sole question you have to answer. Not who did it, just does the state's evidence support beyond a reasonable doubt that Mr. Faust is the person that committed this crime? And that's the key issue in this entire case. And you may get distracted by emotion in this case. You may get distracted by your dislike of Mr. Faust's life choices. But you cannot lose focus, and you cannot forget why we are here today. You are here on a murder, a rape, an aggravated sodomy, and a burglary case. You're going to learn that this is not a case of stranger on stranger violence, but rather a case of interpersonal violence. Interpersonal relationship violence. But you cannot be distracted. You can't be distracted. The reason we all chose you is because we thought you were the best jurors to sit on this case. You would not be distracted by emotion, and you would let the law guide you and come to a just decision. The death of a person is a horrible, horrible tragedy, and no one in this courtroom would tell you otherwise. We are not the media. We don't have the opportunity to speculate and draw in viewers. We don't have the opportunity to sensationalize this case of Ms. Baker's life. And that's what we're going to talk about during this trial, is Ms. Baker's life. We're going to show you what Mr. Faust looked like in the year 2000. This is Mr. Faust in the year 2000. He looks completely different than he looks now. What we put an emphasis on, and what you'll hear in evidence, is this is how Mr. Faust carried himself. He was a very well-dressed, clean-cut individual. He wore jewelry. He drove nice cars. We expect the evidence to, we expect the evidence to show that. We're also going to show you a picture of Mr. Faust on February 8th, 2001, which is about 2 or 3 weeks after Ms. Baker's death. This is Mr. Faust about 3 weeks after Ms. Baker's death. Without a haircut, obviously, without his jewelry in, but this is a picture of Mr. Faust. And the evidence will show this is how Mr. Faust looked after Ms. Baker's death. In 2001, the evidence will show that Mr. Faust was a 25-year-old bar-hopping playboy. You will hear for some of Mr. Faust's ex-girlfriends, particularly the state will call Ms. Brenda Sweeney. And you will learn in this case that the state, Ms. Elizabeth Bigham, she will testify that she's reviewed every single document in this case file. And based on her review of that information, what you will learn is that Mr. Faust did not stay at 350 Cooper Road. Mr. Faust actually stayed in Knollwood Apartments with his girlfriend, Ms. Brenda Sweeney at the time. And this is information that the state has had before today and during the entire pendency of this case. So what happened? That's the question that we're here to figure out. What happened with Ms. Baker? This is Ms. Baker shortly before she passed. This is her law school photo that she took while she was a student at the University of Georgia. And these are Chris Melton's hands after Ms. Baker's death. So Ms. Baker was killed on January 19th, 2001. These photos were taken on January 21st, 2001. This is Mr. Melton's left hand. These are Mr. Melton's right hand. During this trial, you will learn the nature of Ms. Baker's death. It was an overkill. And what we mean by that, it was terrible. That's the best word I could use. It was terrible. It was a horrible death. Ms. Baker was not only unalived, but the person who did this to Ms. Baker, they beat her, they punched her over and over and over again. And you will hear from the medical examiner the injury she had to her face. Her eyes were swollen and blackened. And then this individual, and we don't know the order, but this individual, this sick individual, then took Ms. Baker's printer cord and wrapped it around Ms. Baker's neck. And he laid on top of Ms. Baker as he pulled the opposite ends of that printer cord, strangling her. That individual, at some point, again, we don't know the order that this took place, but these are the things that took place. This individual at some point walked to Ms. Baker's kitchen, pulled out a knife out of her knife block, and then stabbed Ms. Baker in her neck. And you'll hear that Ms. Baker was stabbed on the right side of her neck. This wasn't enough for this individual. This individual then went into the living room of the home, took Ms. Ashley Hall's chenille blanket off of the couch, went and turned on the eye of the stove. They put the blanket on the stove. And when this blanket caught ablaze, what occurred was this person walked back into Ms. Baker's room while Ms. Baker laid on the floor, still grasping for air. You will hear that there was a shoot in her lung. He places this blanket on the bed. And then this person takes your laptop. You will hear back in 2001, laptops, cell phones now are like laptops. Back in 2001, laptops were like cell phones. They have all your personal information. But this person takes her laptop, he then closes her door, locks it, goes to her bathroom door, and you saw a picture of it in the States opening, closes the bathroom door, locks it, and takes his time to clean up Miss Baker's house. As the state mentioned in their opening, this person wiped down the door, this person wiped down the stove handles, this person wiped down the back door, this person wiped down the windowsill. And when firefighters obviously fired a couple hours later, the fire burst through the roof, you will hear from firefighters that in order to get in this home, they had to kick in the door. And it was deadbolt locked. And the type of doors you'll learn that Ms. Baker had, the top lock has a key that you can put in. You have to unlock it to unlock the deadbolt. The bottom lock from the inside, you can just twist it. They have to kick in the front door. It's deadbolt locked. And the back door, there's so much smoke, and the state says in there, there's so much smoke in the house, the firefighter goes to the back door to unlock the door, and the deadbolt is locked on the back door. But what you will hear is that when firefighters found Ms. Baker, the individual that did this to her, this was somebody she was comfortable being naked with. The state is not going to present any evidence that clothes were ripped off of her. The state is not going to present any evidence that clothes were found near her. The state is not going to present any evidence that a towel was around her. She was completely nude, no clothing around her body at all. Now, while this individual was strangling Ms. Baker, you don't need to write this or bring like this. The evidence we intend to present is that Ms. Baker was scratching at this individual's hands while he was trying to strangle. While he was choking Ms. Baker, trying to get him off. While he was choking Ms. Baker, was grabbing his hair, trying to get him off her. And the forensics evidence, and we'll get into forensics, I won't go there now, but the forensics evidence will support that Ms. Baker was fighting for her life. Now, I mentioned the back door, that the back door was deadbolt locked. You will hear from a young lady by the name of Ms. Kishana Armstrong. She's Ms. Baker's neighbor. Ms. Baker stayed at 160 Fun Drive. Ms. Armstrong stayed at 140 Fun Drive. So if you're looking at this map, Ms. Baker's home is here where the blue tarp is. Ms. Armstrong's home is right here. And what Ms. Armstrong can tell you, and this is the same thing she told law enforcement 20 plus years ago that they ignored, was that, hey, it was 7:45 in the morning. I was going to my car because I had classes. I was getting ready to go to school. And to my surprise, I found it odd that a white guy was running through my backyard with a white t-shirt on and light blue jeans. And Ms. Armstrong is going to tell you. You'll see a photo of it. But Ms. Armstrong is going to tell you, she's going to testify. And what she'll tell you is this person, you can't remember the face because it's been 24 years ago. And you'll learn police never followed up with it. They never showed her a photograph of Chris Melton. And as the state said, Chris Melton was the center of the investigation, right? But they never showed her a photograph of Chris Melton. They never gave her a photo lineup. They said, hey, you recognize anybody in the photo lineup? So what she'll come in and testify to is, hey, I don't remember the person's face. I can't really remember the person's hair, but I do remember the person having the exact same color hair as Chris Melton. That's what Ms. Armstrong is going to tell you. This is Chris Melton back in 2001. Ms. Armstrong is going to tell you that she can't remember her hairstyle. I can't remember her hairstyle. But I do vividly remember this person's hair color. And what you'll learn is police never even asked her hair color. They don't even ask her. When they interviewed 20 years ago, they don't ask her the hair color. Only thing they ask her, how tall is the person, what age group did he look like he was in. And she'll say he looked like he was in his 20s. He had kind of like a medium athletic type of build. And they're aware that Ms. Baker is dating Chris Melton. they never show her a photo of Chris Milton. You will learn in this case that law enforcement ignored Ms. Armstrong for 25 years. We had to reach out to Ms. Armstrong. Once Mr. Faust was arrested, Ms. Armstrong was no longer needed. Crime of opportunity. I told you that I would talk about how this crime is a crime of opportunity. During this trial, one of the most important facts that you all will learn is that Ms. Baker did indeed have two roommates. One of her roommates is Dr. Valerie Lowe. I believe you heard about her from the state. She went by Miss Valerie Lane, who's in school. And also Mrs. Ashley Peavy Hall. At the time of this case in 2001, she went by Miss Hall. You will learn that each girl had a boyfriend. We were counting Ms. Baker and Mr. Milton. So at any given time, you will learn that there were 6 people in the house. And it was very rare, your testimony, very rare that someone would be at the house alone. However, on January 18th, 2001, being great roommates, Dr. Lowe tells Ms. Baker, hey, I'm not going to be home. We can tell that she was going somewhere with her boyfriend, so she was going to be out of town. Miss Ashley Peavy Hall tells Ms. Baker the exact same thing. And you will hear testimony about Ms. Baker's response. What you will know is that Ms. Baker was home alone. What you will also hear is that Ms. Baker and Chris Milton spoke the day before her death 5 times. There was a 22-minute call. There was a 5-minute call. There was a 19-minute call. And there was 2 other short calls the day before her death between Ms. Baker and Chris Milton. And when law enforcement asked Chris Milton the day of the crime, or the day close to the crime, hey, did you know that Ms. Baker was going to be by herself? He said, of course not. He said, of course not. I didn't know that. She wouldn't have told me anything like that. But I do remember me telling her that I wouldn't be able to come down to Athens and spend the night with her. A couple of years go by. And police do this as part of their investigation tactics. Police asked me again, hey, do you remember if Ms. Baker told you that she was going to be home alone by herself the day before she died? Chris Milton then tells law enforcement, I don't remember. So a question that you will have to ask, maybe a question that you have, is if your future fiance told you she was going to be by herself and died the next day, is that a fact that you would forget? You will also learn about the nature of their relationship. Dr. Lowe will tell you that Ms. Baker and Mr. Milton, first semester law school, like this. They're really tight, really close. Mr. Milton will probably testify that if there are 7 days in a week, 5 of those days, him and Ms. Baker would be together. And this is first semester. But you'll hear from Dr. Lowe that on New Year's Day of 2001, she came home, and to her surprise, Ms. Baker was home alone. And she talked to Ms. Baker about it. She asked her about it. Ms. Baker didn't respond. I don't answer that. But Dr. Lowe will say there was a change in the relationship from that day up until the time Tara had died. They were not spending as much time together as they used to. But you'll also hear from Ms. Baker's best friend. And I say best friend because Chris Milton stated, and that may be his testimony, that Mrs. Peavy Hall was Tara Baker's best friend. She described the relationship to law enforcement as it's pretty much like watching the normal ending of a relationship. But when law enforcement asked Mr. Milton about the relationship, Mr. Milton said, oh, everything was fine. I was about to shoot my borderline fiance, we were about to get married. It wasn't until 5 months later in June when law enforcement approached Mr. Milton and said, Chris, we heard about a fight that you and Tara had a week before her death. Do you know about that? And for the very first time, he admits that there was trouble in paradise. He says, oh yeah, I know about that. It wasn't a big deal. It was something minor. Now, in the evidence that was provided to us, it wasn't provided to us. You'll learn that we don't have any information on what that fight was about except what Chris Milton said it was about. But it also matches up with Chris Milton's time. Chris Milton, when he interviewed with police in 2024, he told law enforcement that he had not seen Tara Baker in 10 days. Okay? That's very important enough. He said that I had not seen Tara Baker in 10 days. That 10 days lines up with their last fight. And Chris Milton said, 5 months later, I remember this fight. That is an important date to remember. Because in 2001, when Chris Milton was asked, or matter of fact, he wasn't asked, Chris Milton was told that there was DNA evidence in this case in 2001. When they told him it was DNA evidence, Chris Milton volunteered. I was just here 6 days ago. She was at my parents' house, and we had sex 6 days ago. And then he asked, did y'all find semen or anything on her like that? But this is the issue. Law enforcement failed to follow up. They met with Chris Milton's parents, and you would think it's a significant piece of information that you saw a young lady that died at your home the week before she died. The parents never mentioned or confirmed seeing Tara Baker at her home. She was at their home the weekend before. What's verified based on Chris Milton's own words, twice, 2024 and 2001. He started 10 days before she died, and they had a fight the week before, which will line up this. I promised you that I would talk to you about Chris and Tara's relationship. So this was a relationship where these individuals met at Georgia Military College. Chris was in school as a pre-med major. So pre-med is pretty much individuals going to school to become doctors. Tara was in, excuse me, Miss Baker was in school to become a lawyer. So these individuals were equally yoked. Miss Baker graduated school, and of course, as you know, she entered law school. Mr. Melton dropped out of school. And what happened when Mr. Melton dropped out of school? Miss Baker, she moved to Athens to attend law school. And I'm sure Chris Melton, he had an amazing woman. He followed. And he didn't follow and move in with Miss Baker. What he did, he followed and moved into a room with someone else that Miss Baker introduced him to. And you will learn that Mr. Melton, to stay close to Tara, was traveling back and forth every day for work from Athens to Covington, Loganville, Gwinnett County, Georgia, every single day while Miss Baker was attending law school. You will hear that towards the end of 2000, as I mentioned, that Miss Baker was distancing herself from Mr. Melton, and she was developing a friendship with another individual, an individual that was in her profession. Her roommates will also tell you that the relationship with Mr. Melton was coming to an end. Now, this is the biggest thing I want you to focus on during the closing. Excuse me, during the evidence. Is Chris Melton's behavior after Miss Baker died. This is going to be extremely telling evidence. Miss Baker dies on January 19th. On January 25th, Mr. Melton goes to Miss P.D. Hall's home to spend the weekend with her and her boyfriend, the family. On the 25th, he calls a girl by the name of Lisa Tucker and invites her on a lunch. He goes on a lunch. I'll say that he goes on a lunch. I don't want to say anything. We're talking within a week of this borderline fiancé dying. Then on this next day, after he set up a lunch with Miss Lisa Tucker, he then calls a woman by the name of Holly Hubbard and sets up a lunch with her as well. And Miss P.D. Hall went to this lunch with Chris and Miss Holly Hubbard. She took her boyfriend at the time, Chris Hall. And what she'll tell you, or what the evidence will show, is that during that lunch, Miss P.D. Hall witnessed Mr. Melton flirting with Holly Hubbard and even rubbing Miss Holly Hubbard's back a week after his girlfriend has just died. And when Miss Ashley P.D. Hall says, all right, me and Chris are leaving, Chris Hall, her boyfriend was Chris Hall. Me and Chris are leaving, Mr. Melton explained to them that he was going to stay and hang out with Miss Hubbard. And this, again, is within a week of his borderline fiancé being brutally murdered. You'll learn on January 27th, after hanging out with Miss Hubbard, he called her around 10 o'clock that night and told her she was out on the town to give him a call. Again, this is a week after his girlfriend has just been brutally murdered. Miss Hubbard did not give Mr. Melton a call. We'll also learn that there was a candlelight vigil where the woman that Mr. Melton claimed loved, that you experienced death, death is like this, losing an instant. There was a candlelight vigil held for this family. And instead of going to that candlelight vigil for Miss Baker, for his girlfriend, Mr. Melton told law enforcement, because they had to confront him with the situation. This is nothing that he told law enforcement. They confronted him with the situation. Mr. Melton told law enforcement that, yeah, I knew about the candlelight vigil. I knew about it for about 4 days. But, Lauren, she already had these tickets to this country concert at Turner Field. And, she told me that, she talked me out of going. She said that, Chris, that isn't somewhere you need to be. So instead of going to his girlfriend's, if they were still together, his girlfriend's candlelight vigil, he went to a country concert at Turner Field with 2 other couples.
Pause it.
It was him and Laura Sherling. Mm-hmm. It was Laura Sherling's mom and dad.
What the actual fuck? Did I hear that correctly? He decided that. Decided to go to a country concert and set up her candlelight vigil.
Yes. You heard that right.
And I know he ain't talking about Edrick. He's talking about her boyfriend, Chris.
Yeah, he's talking about Chris Melton. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, there's so many things about Chris Melton that are so sus that, and I agree with you, Mitchell. I agree with you wholeheartedly that Attorney Cruz did a fantastic job for what he had and what he was able to do. Y'all know, if you've seen this, you know what's coming. That's why I've been kind of ignoring it, because I know what's coming.
Okay, well, let's roll tape.
Okay. Do you want me to make it faster, or is it good where it is? Or slower?
It's
Faster,
good.
slower? Okay.
It's
Alright.
good where it is.
Okay, here we go.
And there was also another guy and Gail couple. You, the jurors, will have to decide if Chris Melton's actions after Ms. Baker's death were consistent with someone who had suddenly lost their future wife. Next, I'd like to talk to you about law enforcement's failures. And there was a lot of failures in this case. During the trial, you will learn this case is not simply about my client, Mr. Faust. This case is not simply about Mr. Melton, nor is this case simply about Tara Baker. You will learn that this is a case of law enforcement neglect and failure. The evidence will show while this entire community was in dread and fear, law enforcement had enough evidence supporting that the person that killed Ms. Baker was right in front of them. But because of the cameras, because of the media attention, and because of the sensationalism, they have Mr. Faust sitting in that chair. The evidence will show that law enforcement knew, this is information they're aware of, law enforcement knew and ignored, as I mentioned, that all the human hair found on her body that did not belong to Ms. Baker was of Caucasian origin. You will not hear a shred of evidence that there's an African-American man's hair on Ms. African-American's hair on Ms. Baker's body. And the reason I'm showing you a photo of Mr. Faust with the afro is because he had a lot of hair. The evidence will show that law enforcement conducted a DNA test. A DNA test was done. This isn't the first DNA test. A DNA test was conducted on a pubic hair found on Ms. Baker's butt. Now, in this case, and the state has already told you this, so I'll follow up with it. In this case, it is undisputed that Ms. Baker was sexually assaulted anally. A piece of evidence that law enforcement had was a pubic hair was found on her buttocks. They conducted a mitochondrial DNA test on this hair. And the results of the test was that Mr. Melton could not be excluded as the contributor of the hair. This is information law enforcement had. Law enforcement knew, and this science is now not good science. I do want to be very clear with you. So we're not talking about it because of the scientific purposes. We're talking to you about it because they knew this information. There was a hair found on the murder weapon, Ms. Baker's murder weapon. So on the cord that was used to strangle her, the cord block was next to Ms. Baker's head. I'm sure you'll see photographs of how Ms. Baker was found. On this block, they found hairs, human hairs. And one of the hairs, they did a test. It's not good science anymore. We're not that clear. But at the time of 2001, law enforcement knew that that the scientists had determined that this hair was similar to Chris Melton's hair. Law enforcement ignored it. Law enforcement knew and ignored, and the state has already told you this, there was no evidence of forced entry in Ms. Baker's home. They talked about a window. This is what you will see in the evidence. Can we? This is the window that the state talked to you about. It's not the best picture, but what you'll see is there's a screen in this window. Because they could not figure out how the person got into the home, they started going around the house and they saw a bent screen. You'll hear they saw a bent screen. And because the screen is bent and in the window, they assumed, hey, maybe this person broke in the house by taking the screen down, lifting up the window, lifting up the blinds, climbing into the window, committing this crime. Then because the doors are locked, they climbed back out the window, let the blinds down, close the window, then put the screen back in place. Now I'll show you a closer picture of what you will receive in evidence of that screen. That's a closer image of it. And this is one more image of that screen as well. And it's just showing the shape it was in when law enforcement saw this green window. That's the outside. Now we're going to show you the inside, and this is what you'll see in evidence as well. This is the inside of that window. Chair in front of the window, blinds down, unruffled. But this is how they're alleging Mr. Faust entered into Ms. Baker's home and exited Ms. Baker's home to commit this crime. The law enforcement ignored that there was no signs of forced entry into her home. They ignored that both the front doors were deadbolt locked and the back doors were deadbolt locked. Law enforcement knew and ignored, and this is very important too, because Mr. Faust is charged with a burglary. Dr. Lowe will tell you that in her room, she had a change jar with money, she had jewelry in her room, she had electronics in her room, and nothing was touched. Nobody had anything around her. You would also hear from Ms. Ashley P. Hall, who will tell you, maybe see images, but you will learn that she had jewelry in her room and she had electronics in her room, and nothing was touched or taken. Nothing was rambled through. Then you will hear about Ms. Baker's room. Ms. Baker had heirloom jewelry in her room. heirloom jewelry. She had diamond earrings in her ears. And the only thing that was taken is a personal item, which is her laptop. Police ignored that fact. Law enforcement also ignored, and well, let me say this. So we don't have to prove anything, right? We don't have to present evidence. The state has to answer the questions when it comes to this case. There are no questions that we have to answer. But something that law enforcement knew and ignored was after Ms. Baker's death, a young lady volunteered. She called in to law enforcement and said, hey, I believe Ms. Baker was out at a Mexican restaurant with me the night before her death. This young lady's name is Jessica Gann. And we're either get it through Ms. Gann or we get it through the law enforcement officer she told it to. But she said, hey, Ms. Baker was out with me the night before she died. She said, we're at a Mexican grill, and I don't know if it's her, but I believe it was her. One girl was talking about law school. I think I heard her. Law enforcement never followed up on this information. Law enforcement never showed Ms. Gann any type of photo of Ms. Baker. Law enforcement never followed up on her to figure out, okay, what more information do you have? They never even confirmed whether or not it was Ms. Baker she saw. They just ignored it. So the state cannot present evidence to you supporting that Ms. Baker, after she left the law library the night before she died, that she did not go out. They don't know. They don't know if Ms. Baker went out. They don't know if Ms. Baker went home. They just don't know. And they don't have any evidence to show one way or the other. Now, they mentioned Chris Melton's alibi. On January 21st, Chris Melton's parents told him, law enforcement, they are after you. They are coming for you, Chris. And that is a quote from Mr. Melton. That his parents told him, Chris, they are coming for you. This was January 19th to 21st. It was in January 2001. Police wait 4 months to go speak to Mr. Melton's parents after they've already told him 4 months prior that they're coming for you. And mind you, Mr. Melton is staying with his parents now. So he's in the house every single day. They asked the parents, hey, can you tell us what your son was doing 4 months ago on January 19th, 2001 at 7 o'clock in the morning? Can you give me a rundown? Surprisingly, Chris Melton learns their only son, unless they've had children since then, but he was their only son at the time. They say, oh, he was at home. He was here. I remember seeing him. He was walking around. We were mulling around that morning. And then he left our house, and we know exactly where he went. How would they know that information? How would they know where Mr. Melton was going 4 months prior? But this is law enforcement confirming Mr. Melton's alibi, speaking to his parents. 4 months. 4 months after Ms. Baker's death. Law enforcement failed to verify Chris Melton's alibi thoroughly. They just started taking words. Well, he was here. Okay, perfect. He was with you. Okay, perfect. And this is the important thing in this case. The most important time in this case is 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. Whatever happens after 9 a.m., it doesn't matter because the murder is taking place. So 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. Remember, Ms. Shauna Armstrong at 7:45 said she saw this guy running. 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. is the most important window in this case. Law enforcement also waited 4 months to try and get Mr. Melton's phone records. They waited 4 months after Ms. Baker's death to try to get the phone records for his apartment phone, and that may or may not be important to y'all, but to get the records for his apartment phone and his parents' phone call records, resulting in those records being lost forever. So what the state will not be able to present to you in defense of Mr. Melton is that, hey, we have these phone records showing where he was. Those records were lost because law enforcement did not act to get those records. This is the most important thing. So they showed you all a map of Ms. Baker's home in Cooper Road, and they showed you where Mr. Faust's home is located. Y'all remember that? It's in the box? Okay. This is what law enforcement, this is what you want. They get a neighborhood canvas. They had roadblock, all this great stuff. Things you want here. One, they did not talk to the residents on the other side of your apartment. They could have simply went to 350 Cooper Road and knocked on the door. And they would have had all the information they needed about Mr. Faust because, as they mentioned, 350 Cooper Road was his stepmother's home. So she could have given them all the information they needed. Two, law enforcement was aware, as you would hear Ms. Stevens say that, hey, I've looked at every document in this case. They were aware that Mr. Faust or his grandmother, if they notated them, I don't know how good their notes were, but those were not two individuals that were notated as individuals that they spoke to around the time of Ms. Baker's death. But this is a fear of theirs, because they're saying that Mr. Faust stayed a block away. They're basing that on him saying, hey, I stayed at this address for a year. But again, they didn't go and interview those. They interviewed people in Deer Park, in the neighborhood that Ms. Baker stayed in. Chris Melton, another important fact. After Ms. Baker's death, Chris Melton comes to the police department with his hands covered in underwear. You will hear from law enforcement that there was a shirt that Ms. Ashley P.D. Hall, she's an amazing friend. She did everything she could to try to figure out what's going on with Ms. Baker. When Chris Melton came to her house, there was a shirt that she washed, and it was a substance. She called police and said, hey, we believe there's an issue with the shirt. And what law enforcement determined was the substance on the shirt was the exact same substance Chris Melton showed up to the police department with his hands covered in the day of her death. Now, you may hear the audio was brand new. I'm trying to play it for you all. But you may hear law enforcement. I'm going to play it. I've played it a couple times. But you'll hear law enforcement ask him, and this is a quote, do you want to watch them things? And Chris Melton says, no, this is neat right here. They never searched Chris Melton's apartment. They never searched Chris Melton's car for blood. There's a gentleman you'll hear about by the name of Lindsay Baker. He begged. You'll hear he begged law enforcement, search his car. Did you search his car? Did you search his car? But what you'll learn is, and the state already told you this, when Chris Melton came to Athens, he didn't bring his truck back. He rode in Josh's truck. And law enforcement never searched his car for blood. They didn't care. You won't hear evidence presented by the state that they searched Mr. Melton's car. You won't hear evidence by the state that they searched Mr. Melton's apartment. You won't hear evidence from the state that they searched Mr. Baker's parents' home. In regards to the claim that Mr. Melton made that he saw Ms. Baker 6 days before her death, law enforcement never attempted to confirm that. They just took his word for it. Parents didn't confirm it. No one confirmed it. They just simply, well, Chris said it, so it must mean it's true. Let's talk about the forensics. I've already talked to you about the hair. There's no, and I'm going to talk about this twice. When law enforcement met with, and the state told you this, when law enforcement met with Mr. Faust in the interview, what they told Mr. Faust was that your DNA was found in a house in Deer Park. You will hear no evidence that Mr. Faust's DNA was found in any place other than Ms. Baker's body. His DNA was not in the house unless you're saying in the house because it's in Ms. Baker's body. There's no DNA of Mr. Faust ever being present in that house. And you will hear he is adamant. I have never mentioned, I don't know anybody over there. He's going to say that. What law enforcement did not do, there are no handprints belonging to Mr. Faust. There are no fingerprints that the state will present to you belonging to Mr. Faust. There is nothing inside of the house that the state will be able to present to you to connect Mr. Faust with Miss Baker's house. The state wants you to believe that Mr. Faust is smart enough to enter Miss Baker's home, fight with Miss Baker, kill Miss Baker without leaving a trace of evidence behind, sexually assault her, right? Because they're charging him with aggravated sodomy based on the allegation that he sexually assaulted Miss Baker anally, but sexually assaulted her without leaving any identifiable DNA behind, then escaped Deer Park just unseen. But he is dumb enough to leave his DNA in her body and commit the charged crimes at the busiest time of the morning. And I don't think the state ever told you what time they're alleging that Mr. Faust committed this crime. Their window is between 8 a.m. and probably around 8:45. And you don't leave your common sense at home. You know what's going on at 8 in the morning and 8:45 outside your neighborhoods. But you have to decide as the jurors, does that make sense? That's the question you have to answer. The DNA. I think this is the most important part of this case that I would like to talk about. We talked about the DNA test conducted on the pubic hair found on Ms. Baker's butt. But I would like to talk about the sexual assault kit that the state talked to you about. So the sexual assault kit, as I explained to you, came back with multiple DNA profiles. Mr. Faust was one of the identifiable profiles. Mr. Melton was one of the identifiable profiles. Mr. Faust's DNA, if I understand the DNA correctly, and I may not, the testimony will be much clearer to me, was found in her vagina and her mouth. Chris Melton will tell you that Ms. Baker engaged in vaginal and oral sex. That is very important fact in this case. However, as you know from the charges in the indictment, Mr. Faust was charged with aggravated sodomy for anal sexual assault. Chris Melton told law enforcement when they asked him, do you all engage in anal sex? No, never. She doesn't do anything like that. We just have normal sex. Well, lo and behold, when they get the DNA results back, the only identifiable profile in Ms. Baker's anus is Chris Melton's profile. Now, something the state mentioned, they told you in the opening that gravity could make the DNA go into that area. Well, what the state says is evidence, but what Dr. Falzone says will be evidence. He is the medical examiner. He's the person that did the autopsy. And what he's going to tell you is that it is clear that Ms. Baker was sexually assaulted anally based on the injuries. Well, let me use the right language. He's going to say it's consistent. That's the proper language. That her injuries to her anus are consistent with sexual assault anally. And the only identifiable DNA profile is Chris Melton. The state will not present any evidence to you supporting that Mr. Faust ever engaged in anal sex with Ms. Baker. It is important that you focus on the evidence that is presented. He is charged with aggravated sodomy, and his DNA is not even identified. All right. There's no evidence supporting that Mr. Faust had anal sex with Ms. Baker anytime or anywhere. The state will not be able to present evidence supporting that Mr. Faust and Ms. Baker engaged in that act. Now I would like to talk to you about what I call directing the investigation. You will learn that once law enforcement became aware of Mr. Melton's DNA in Ms. Baker's body, they learned that information that Chris Melton had previously told them was false. Right? You heard the state tell you that DNA typically in certain places only lasts about 5 days. I left out of place. Mr. Melton's DNA was also found in her vagina as well. So his DNA was found in her vagina, anus. Mr. Faust's DNA was found in vagina and mouth. Okay. But you will learn that this DNA of Chris Melton, as the state said, only lasts about 5 days. When law enforcement interviewed Chris Melton, they asked him when was the last time you saw her. He said 10 days. which I said was in line with their fight that he was approached about in June of 2001, the week before death. Law enforcement says, well, look, and I'm going to make sure I say this correctly. Instead of interrogating Chris Melton and confronting him and saying, hey, you've been dishonest with us, something's not right here, we've seen the picture of your hands, what law enforcement tells Mr. Melton is they sit down and meet with him. And you're going to hear from the lead detective in this case, Elizabeth Bigham, that she asked Chris, and this is a quote, so was there ever a time in those 10 days, whatever up, leading up into her death, that y'all just had a quick booty call or met up real fast or anything like that? Chris Melton responded, no. She knew what the DNA evidence was telling her. Ms. Bigham then tells Chris, I need you to be 150% honest with me. And I know that what I'm about to ask you, and I emphasize this language, is not what has been said for 23 years. And that may hinder you from wanting to be honest with me. But you've got to be honest with me. She then tells Chris Melton, look, your DNA would only last in her body 2 to 3 days. And that she needs to, and you'll hear this, she needs to separate Chris Melton's DNA from bad guy's DNA. She says this. I need to be able to explain it. I need to be able to explain it. Jeremy Howell tells Chris Melton, you'll hear Jeremy Howell testify, that the timeline needs to be correct. Everything needs to make sense. And if we know that this window is here and you're over here, I can't explain this gap. You need to be here. But Chris Melton, and you have to decide if he sticks to his story because you know he's lied before, continuously denies being with Miss Baker of her death. They asked Mr. Melton, well, you know, were you with her the night before? You had a booty call with her at 12 o'clock? He says no. They said, well, how about 2 days before? No. Well, how about 3 days, Mr. Melton? Were you with her 3 days before? No. And eventually they get Mr. Melton for the first time to say in this interview, for 23 years, he changes his story to, you know what? Well, we maybe did it on Sunday. We might have did it on Sunday. And then Elizabeth Bigham tells Chris Melton in this interview, not an interrogation, in an interview, I think we just have to be able to explain it. I think we just have to be able to explain it. And that is our job, is to explain it. So we can then go after the one that we think did this. She laughs. I mean, you know, and evidence will show Mr. Faust is the individual that she was referring to. My client. When Chris continues to refuse to put himself and Miss Baker together, Miss Bigham, she says, if you're like, you know what? I effing lied about it 23 years ago because I was a scared, terrified kid. And you're right. I had a booty call with her that night. I left at midnight and I don't know what happened after that. It'll be, thank you. Have a nice day. We'll let you know what happens. Like, that's it. We just want to be able to explain it and make it make sense so we can focus on this, you know? So they can focus on this. You'll learn the lead investigator in this case, Elizabeth Bigham, told Chris Melton it was okay if he changed his story or changed his timeline of when he was with Miss Baker. And if he admitted to lying to police for 23 years so that she could explain away his DNA and put the focus on Mr. Faust and the responsibility for Miss Baker's murder on Mr. Faust, everything would be okay. She would explain it away. When Mr. Melton would not help Miss Bigham explain away his DNA, despite the 23 years of conflicting statements from Mr. Melton, and evidence, and you have to decide, but evidence pointing away from Mr. Faust's involvement in this case, the allure of being a hero, the allure of being on TV, being the officer to solve the 23-year-old Tara Baker case became too strong. And we ended up in the courtroom before 12 jurors to decide Mr. Faust's fate. The allure of being on TV became more powerful than following the evidence. And on May 9th, 2024, while Mr. Faust had just finished working, he's at Walmart buying a Simply Lemonade, police cars swoop in on him and put him in handcuffs and arrest him. Solely because, and this is very important, and follow the state's timeline, solely because his DNA was present in this case. At the time of Mr. Faust's arrest, which you will learn, is not, and this is not a DNA case. We didn't come here to fight with DNA. You will learn Chris Melton's DNA is present, unidentified, our DNA is present, Mr. Faust's DNA is present. And based on his DNA being identified, he was arrested and charged with burglary, based on DNA alone. He was arrested and charged with aggravated sodomy in the anus, even though his DNA isn't present. He was charged with 4 counts of felony murder. He was charged with Nally's murder, and every other count in this indictment solely based on his DNA being present, along with Chris Melton's DNA. Let's discuss the state's evidence against Mr. Faust. And I thank you for your patience. Do you all need a break? Let's discuss the state's evidence against Mr. Faust. To meet its burden of proof to establish beyond a reasonable doubt that Mr. Faust killed Ms. Baker, the state is going to rely on, they're going to present evidence of Mr. Faust's DNA being present. Okay? That isn't anything we're fighting with. As I told you, Mr. Faust's DNA profile was not the only DNA profile present, but these are the questions you have to answer, or the state has to answer. Mr. Faust's DNA profile being present does not tell you why this crime occurred or how this crime occurred. You have to ask for that evidence. It does not tell you when the contact happened. And we don't know. It's been 24 years, 25 years. They charged him with rape. They have to present the evidence that it was rape. The only thing that we could possibly say that you're here in the testimony in this case is that maybe when she was out in the Mexican restaurant, we don't know because they never followed up on it. They came into contact. We don't know. But that's a question the state has to answer. If you're saying it's rape, explain to us why his DNA is there. If you're saying it's rape, prove it. It does not tell us how the contact between Miss Baker and Miss Baker and Mr. Faust took place.
We can approach.
May I?
Okay. So I know what's coming. For those that have seen this, you know what's coming. Take a deep breath. Okay. Let's get back to this. Hold on to your bootstraps.
Do you have a motion? Mr. Almajo.
Yes, Judge, because I think this relates to our ruling as to 412 evidence, which I just think Mr. Cruz violated in a manner that borders on placing him in contempt, quite frankly. Mr. Cruz just intimated about the possibility of prior consensual contact that resulted in Mr. Faust's DNA being present in Ms. Baker's body outside of the complained of contact, which would be previous sexual contact that requires 412 notice, Your Honor. So I think Mr. Cruz has quite intentionally actually violated the court's order, which the court has made clear to him after multiple hearings on the issue. And so I'd like the court to instruct Mr. Cruz that that's, again, I guess for the third time now, that that's a wholly inappropriate suggestion to raise in any manner before the jury without having given notice, which he has repeatedly failed to do during the deadline set by the court, or from the point at which the court reiterated the fact that he had failed to procedurally give notice prior to today's date, which would be, well late of the time period in which he would have to do it. It would be 10 days late if he gave it today, but he has not. I would say further to the court that Mr. Cruz has represented to the court that he has no evidence other than what's in the state's file. Now, I guess he's making reference to this random tip that was received that Ms. Baker may or may not have been in a Mexican restaurant, which again doesn't say anything about her alleged contact with Mr. Faust. So there is no evidence supporting this, which is a finding the court would have to make, even if Mr. Cruz had provided proper notice, which he has not done. And now in opening statements after a week of jury selections has intentionally violated the court's order. So I'm asking the court to instruct Mr. Cruz not to engage in any further statements regarding that type of allegation, as the court has already instructed him, and to refrain from engaging in any questioning after opening statements, as is prohibited by Rule 412. So that's the state's objection that Mr. Cruz has intentionally violated the rape shield law, and the instructions of the state is asking the court to give Mr. Cruz again for the third time.
In just a moment, sir. Yes, of course. Ms. Satterfield, are you able to read back the question prior to the objection? Are you able to do that? Would you mind reading that to the court? Thank you. Of course. unable to find it? If you can't, that's fine. I'll go ahead and ask the state for something. I'll let Mr. Cruz respond. If you can't find it, that's fine. I am going to go back on the record when you're ready. You good? Thank you for trying. Okay, thank you. Mr. Yalmanchili, please tell the court exactly what you feel, the words that you feel Mr. Cruz deliberately said to violate the order that the court gave.
Yes, Your Honor. So Mr. Cruz initially said the state can't prove when it is that Mr. Faust's DNA entered Ms. Baker's body. Mr. Cruz then said the police didn't follow up on this tip about the Mexican restaurant. Mr. Cruz then said it's the state's burden to prove that, and then said something to the effect of it could have gotten there when they had contact at that Mexican restaurant the night before the incident, essentially. Now that's paraphrasing, but Mr. Cruz stated that there was a separate time when Mr. Faust could have had contact with Ms. Baker in a manner in which DNA would have been found in her mouth and in her vagina that is a match to Mr. Faust, which they are not contesting, Your Honor. So I think that is pretty clearly a violation of 24-4-412 when no prior notice has been made and no showing of competent evidence showing that would pass 403 examination has been presented to the court as required by 412. So that's the actions that I think that Mr. Cruz has taken in order to intentionally violate the court's previous instructions.
All right, thank you. Mr. Cruz.
So part of the state's case, Your Honor, is that Mr. Faust and Ms. Baker doesn't know each other at all. Okay, I was telling them that one time, they could have had contact with each other at this restaurant. The court explicitly told me, or explained to me orally, that I could not make an argument about consent. So I did not make an argument about consent. A big part of their case is there's no way possible an issue can bring to you. I'm just addressing that fact. Nothing in regards to the unenforced order regarding 412 or in regards to argument of consent. Now, I am arguing as a court heard that it's the state's burden to prove that occurred. That's as far as I understand that I'm lawful to go considering unenforced orders beyond arguments.
Mr. Cruz, what would be the purpose of even mentioning the possibility of prior contact if it wasn't to violate the court's order?
Because the state's position is simply that these two would never run into each other. We're just going to that way.
All right, thank you. Yes, sir.
And Your Honor, since it is my motion, that is a complete and total misrepresentation of what just happened. Mr. Cruz was talking about the DNA and the fact that the state's contention is that the DNA came into Ms. Baker's body when his client was raping, sodomizing, and then murdering Ms. Baker. And then said, alternatively, that could have happened if they had run into each other at this Mexican restaurant the night before in the context of where the DNA came from. So the idea that this is just an attack on the idea that Ms. Baker and Mr. Faust could randomly run into each other in some other social setting and that it has nothing to do with intimating that there was some kind of prior consensual sexual contact, something that Mr. Cruz seems to want to create the impression of with, as he says it himself, no evidence existing to support, is a violation of 412. And I don't see how it could be possibly interpreted as anything other than an intentional act on Mr. Cruz's part after repeated instructions from the court that he hasn't followed the proper procedural rules in order to introduce such evidence, and his own statements that would support a finding by the court, even if he had given notice, that there isn't any evidence, much less sufficient evidence under 403 to allow that allegation into the trial of this case.
Thank you. Yes, sir. And Mr. Yalmanchili does get the last word. It's his motion, but go ahead.
I think the prosecutor's taking my statement and the actual is reaching. There's evidence in the case. If one of their positions is that, hey, these people have never came into contact with each other, we're allowed to rebut that by saying, hey, they never had contact. I am not speaking of sexual contact. I am speaking of proximity. The state's position is simply there's no gender like for the state to get up and say, hey, this attorney should be held in contempt for this made statements about DNA and saying that, hey, they could have had contact with each other. I didn't say they had sex at the Mexican restaurant. All I'm going to say, hey, there's a chance these two were around each other. I understand the other court's rule, but to get up, object, and say, hey, this attorney should be held in contempt and intentionally violate the court's order. That is not this. I have not said one time in this whole thing, consistent with the court's order, consistent with my understanding of 412, that Mr. Faust and Ms. Baker, and that's what I've said is the state ain't charging them with this offense, so they have to present evidence to support their allegations. And I've said it most different ways. That's exactly what the position is not.
Yes, sir. Anything else?
Your Honor, Mr. Cruz just said that it was about the DNA in his response. There is no other way to interpret DNA that is taken out of an oral sample and a vaginal sample that is male DNA other than claiming some sexual act. So I think not only is Mr. Cruz intentionally violating the court's previous orders, he's also being disingenuous in his representation of what just occurred in the courtroom, which the court saw for itself.
All right, thank you. That's all. All right. With regard to this particular moment, Mr. Cruz, we have had discussions about this issue. And I am finding that your comments were deliberate, that you are deliberately trying to circumvent 412. I'm not going to find you in contempt because this moment is very similar to an argument you made about the state's comments about a word that you did not agree was appropriate. Attorney's comments, Attorney's arguments, openings and closings are not to be considered as evidence. But I am offering this to you, Mr. Cruz, as a warning that it is imperative that you follow the court's order. I've made several rulings with regard to this case. You're not allowed to talk about any issues of consent. You are not allowed to circumvent 412 without a proper motion. You have not filed a proper motion with regard to 412. If you do, the court will hear it. The state is correct. Even if we do hear a 412 motion, you have to have evidence supporting your motion. It can't just be something that you throw out there and assume that is something that could be properly admitted. But until a motion has been filed by the defense regarding 412, my order stands, and you are not allowed to go down that road. Am I clear about that, Mr. Cruz? All right, thank you. You may bring the jury back in. Thank you.
I don't want to catch this bitch.
Okay. So she says there that he never filed a 412 motion, which is bull. I don't remember if she ever ruled on it, but in the pretrial motions, and Melanie, I believe, went over this, and I think I'd have to look in the Discord server that I just joined to see if they have it. But there is a motion, there was a motion on the record and filed by the defense for 412. So, yeah. And let's just get through openings, and then we'll say the testimony, we'll blast through testimony starting tomorrow. Also, programming note, for those that don't know, I don't know if have I announced this yet? I don't think I have. We are holding a fundraiser for Edrick's appeal fund, tentatively scheduled for June 12th, starting at 6 p.m. Eastern.
Yeah.
So,
Yes,
and he has the hearing for the motion for a new trial that day. So I think it's perfect timing. The attorney that they are trying to hire for his appeals is a mentor, I believe, of Attorney Cruz. So today, once we get done here, I am going to go on to the Free Edrick Faust Facebook group, which if you are not a member of that yet, I highly recommend it because there is a bunch of stuff on there. Hang on. I'm looking it up. Yeah, I'm looking it up. Give me a second. I'm working on it. Share.
That might be who it is. I don't know.
I don't know if you can copy and paste it from the chat, but I just posted it in mine. I did it on my laptop, but
Right, it would go. It would go in front of an appellant judge, not a criminal judge.
Yes, his other attorney was involved in the YSL case. I never watched that one. This motions hearing on the 12th, I believe, is in front of Judge Law. This is the initial appeal. This is the direct. I don't know what it's called, but it's the initial one where it goes back to the same court. And then after that, they go up the chain, so to speak. So yeah, so all right. let's get back to this because I believe we're almost done with closing. Or why do I keep saying closings? Darn it. Openings. Here we go.
You all may be seated. Thank you. Mr. Cruz?
The state's evidence includes, we mentioned the DNA, but what they also intend to introduce, and this is a question you have to ask yourself with anything they introduce, how does this support that Mr. Faust is responsible for death, burglary, rape, and escape? They intend to bring in a long-term girlfriend of Mr. Faust by the name of Miss Brenda Sweeney. Okay? Now, the thing is, Miss Sweeney and Mr. Faust were in a long-term relationship. They are not strangers. Okay? The state won't present any evidence of strangers coming in saying Mr. Faust broke in their house and did these terrible things to them. But what Ms. Sweeney will testify to, you may get three different things, but I believe we've gotten two. Okay? Police go to Ms. Sweeney's house when Mr. Faust is first arrested. The news is reporting. Right? She's getting phone calls. You'll see this. She's getting phone calls from people saying, "Hey, did you?" I don't know. So I'm assuming. Pretty much, she ends up saying that I just had a phone call that Edrick has been arrested. So what happens is law enforcement goes to her house, and the way they find her, based on what the officer said, is police reports. Mr. Faust and Ms. Sweeney have a tumultuous relationship. They call a lie. Okay? Their police report of Ms. Sweeney calling the police on Mr. Faust and saying he beat her up, and she gets arrested because there's witnesses saying no, it's the other way around. She was jumping on him. You're going to hear testimony from Ms. Sweeney where she says, "Hey, Edrick hit me, and I beat him so bad I threw him into a DJ booth one time. Edrick took my car without permission. I went to his grandmother's house, and I beat him so bad he was trying to get me off of him, so he was scratching me, and other people had to come take me off of him." And she's going to give you multiple stories like that. But during this interview, it gets to a point where you see that this interview stops. And she says, "Hey, the worst thing I can say that Mr. Faust has done to me, he's hit me, and when the relationship is over and I'm with somebody else, he does something. Won't leave me alone." Police don't take that as true. When they didn't get this scandalous story from Ms. Sweeney about how terrible of a person Mr. Faust is, it was terrible, like with your significant other, what they say is, a young lady has been killed. And we want to get justice for this young lady. And we know, he's a terrible guy, he's done terrible things to you. And just like we want to get justice for this young lady, we also want to get justice for you too. And she says, "Wait, guys, I don't know anything about a code case. I don't know anything about a girl dying. All right, are you saying Edrick did it?" "Yes, I believe he did it." "And Brenda, you were involved. You were with him at the time." And you'll see her, she misinterprets, and she said, "What? How am I involved?" And he says, "Well, Brenda, you were with them, so forth and so on. We've seen police reports with you too." And then she pauses for a second, and she says, "Edrick used to force himself on." And the officer says, "Oh, tell me more about that. Tell me more about it." And he says, "Did he punch you?" She says, "Yeah, he punched me." "Was he violent?" "Yeah, he was violent." "When he would do this to you, was it vaginally, orally, anally?" She said, or you'll hear, she says, "I don't know. For me, that." Right? And they continue talking to Ms. Sweeney. And it gets to a point, and they may present, they may not present, but I want you to know this is evidence that may come in this case. It gets to a point that Ms. Sweeney is under so much pressure. And forgive me, I forgot these. Ms. Sweeney tells law enforcement that she's had multiple strokes, by the way. So she's physically suffering, and she also says it affects her memory. But it gets to a point where they get Ms. Sweeney so worked up, she says, "Y'all, God just gave me something." She said, "I'm very biblical." She said, "This one time, Edrick went to this house, and there was this girl, and I don't know what he did, and set the house on fire." And they say, "Well, did he hurt the girl?" She says, "I don't know." She says, "Was anything taken?" She says, "Yeah, he probably took the TV. He probably took it to his stepmother's house." Officer asks, "Well, how do you know this? Did he tell you?" She says, he must have told me. I knew too much." And police at that moment, they don't take it like, "Oh my goodness, she may not be in the best space to talk." Right? They continue talking to her, telling them all types of fantastical stories. But what ends up occurring is, once I find out about Ms. Sweeney's interview, you'll hear this too. That's why I say it's two sides. I speak to Ms. Sweeney. She comes to the court in front of the investigators that interviewed her, in front of the prosecutor, in front of Mr. Faust, in front of myself. And she says, "I felt like it led me to those answers." She says, "The only thing that I can remember from my relationship with Mr. Faust is that there was one time that we had unconsensual sex, and it was not violent." The state will introduce Ms. Sweeney, not as evidence supporting that Mr. Faust committed these crimes against Ms. Baker, but to get you emotionally riled up. And that's why we chose you as jurors, because we believe that you will focus on the evidence. They are also going to bring in an individual by the name of Mr. Edrick Jeffries. Mr. Jeffries is serving a 105-month federal sentence. You will learn throughout this case, multiple people, since 2001, and at least one officer has testified that there's been people from prison called with tips, like, "Hey, I have this information, can I get a deal?" Now, what you'll learn in this case is Mr. Jeffries is going to testify that I don't have a deal. I don't have a deal. But what you have to admit is that after he testifies in this case, he doesn't have a deal now. Because it would be terrible to have a deal now. Of course, we're talking about his deal. What happens after this case, after he testifies and says Mr. Faust told him in 2003 that he committed this crime, I'll get into the details for you. Several prosecutors are going to meet with him. They're going to review the transcript. And if they determine that Mr. Jeffries assisted the state in this case, he is going to receive a benefit. Okay? And you have to consider that information to determine his credibility. But this is what he says. He speaks with, he sees the news. The news breaks and Mr. Faust is arrested. He's in jail. He says this. So you'll hear this. Yeah, a minute or they're recording this. He's sitting there watching TV. He sees Mr. Faust get arrested. Okay? He doesn't call police. He doesn't say, hey, correctional officer, come here. I know something about a crime. He calls his lawyer. You'll hear that he reaches out to his lawyer. And of course, we don't know what the conversation is with his lawyer, but he ends up meeting with the lead investigator in this case, Miss Elizabeth Bigham. When he meets with Miss Bigham, she says, hey, tell me what you know about this case. He says, well, when I was 14 years old, Mr. Faust came to my house. And he was saying, oh, my goodness, I'm about to get into it with police because they know that I killed this girl in your park. Okay? That's what he's going to testify to. So police ask him, why did you wait 20-something years to say that? And Mr. Jeffries says the most important thing, and the reason why he's testifying in his trial. Mr. Jeffries tells him, jail helps me remember things. But you'll hear from Mr. Jeffries. That is the state's evidence. Not a single shred of evidence will place Mr. Faust in Miss Baker's home. And the state has told you themselves, they've admitted it. We don't know how he got into the house. The evidence will show that Chris Melton admitted that Ms. Baker had a key to his house. You have to decide if it's reasonable that Ms. Baker.
I'm going to sustain that.
Yes, ma'am. But the state will rely on Cedric Jeffries, who, when he walks in this courtroom, he is serving a federal sentence right now, 104 months. And this isn't the first case Mr. Jeffries has testified on. Now, he may admit it, he may not admit it. But Mr. Jeffries at this time has testified on 2 other cases. He is a witness that gets in on cases and comes and testifies for the state. Something that's important, you're going to hear the interview of Mr. Jeffries, or he may admit it, so we may not get into the interview. You're going to hear that Mr. Jeffries, one of the things he says is that I've never heard of this case before. Okay? And the state brought it to your attention that Mr. Faust stated that, in his interview, he made statements about Ms. Baker, and we're going to get into those statements. But before I get into those statements, I want to talk to you about sketches you'll see. The state is going to present sketches to you, okay? And what these sketches are an African-American man walking through Deer Park neighborhood, right? Police does a canvass after they found out about Ms. Baker's death. And during this canvass, they're talking to neighbors saying, hey, what did you see? The person that stays directly across the street, Your Honor, maybe switch back to the camera. So what you'll see, as I mentioned, the blue chart, I think you all have to be there, but the house with the blue chart is Sarah Baker's house. The house across the street, I believe that is Mr. Matthew Owens, Mr. Jay Anderson. I may be mistaken. I think Matthew Owens definitely stays there, Mr. Jay Anderson, and another individual. And when police come and talk about what they're going to tell you is that we see a guy in a bright orange shirt. And as you know, in UGA country, you don't wear orange. You're trying to be here. But we see a guy in a bright orange shirt. He's wearing khakis or jeans, and he was walking in front of, down the street in front of Ms. Baker's house. And the officer asks, can you describe him? He says, yeah, he has like small afro hair, black male, orange shirt, jeans. They said, well, how's he walking? He said, he's just walking regular. He's walking. But he says, I leave to go away, walk away from the window for a second. He says, maybe 5 or 10 seconds he walks away from the window. And he says, when I come back, that person is gone. I don't see him anymore. He said, there's no way they could have made it to the end of the street because he said, I can see both sides of the street. He said the person had to cut through the houses. And then you would hear from Miss Tiffany Reichert. And that individual, I think, is Jay Anderson, but the evidence will show the proper name. He doesn't do a sketch, just to be clear. But you will hear from Miss Tiffany Anderson, Tiffany Reichert, who stays right here, this house here. She's going to say when she's coming out of her house to get in her car, she also sees a black guy. And she gives the same description. Wearing an orange shirt, blue jeans, khakis. He's walking down the street. And that's the gentleman I said, she backed up. She said, you stop when you get out of my car. Now, what you'll learn in this case is on the other side of your park, there's another photo you'll see during this trial, there's a Walmart. There's a Walmart on Lexington Road. So people travel from this neighborhood up here at the top through your park and around here, I think somewhere around here, you can cut through and go to the Walmart on Lexington Road. Okay? And Chris Melton will tell us that African-American foot traffic was coming. Tiffany Wright would tell us that she didn't think anything of it because African-American foot traffic is coming. She thought the guy was walking to Walmart. But when police get this information, despite Mr. Shona Armstrong saying we saw a gentleman running through my backyard, police say, okay, let's do a sketch of this person. So you're going to see a sketch, but y'all may not even know these pictures involved in this case. They're going to show those sketches. But they're also going to show a sketch from a young lady. She was the wife of the tow truck driver, okay? And the state may, they may change it, I'm about to say it, but the state may try to make this one person, okay? But it's two different people. She says, hey, I see a guy, I was out with my husband, we were picking up a car. I saw a guy walking down the street. She says this guy has a heavy set face. He's kind of heavier looking. I can't really tell his body because of the jacket he has on. She says it's a white jacket, but she says it's long sleeve, which is different from the individual that Ms. Riker and the individuals that stay across the street from Ms. Baker, different from the individual they saw. They say, well, how was he acting? She said, well, he was just walking down the street. She said, I actually watched him in my mirror the entire time he walked, and he was just walking. They say, well, did he have on a hat? No hat, no hood, just a jacket, just walking down the street. The state is going to present those pictures to you as Mr. Faust. They're going to say, hey, it's a black guy in the neighborhood. This is Mr. Faust. But again, the only evidence they can present to you is that this gentleman was just walking. One heavier set in the face, another wearing a short sleeve orange shirt, one wearing an orange jacket, right? But those are the sketches they are going to present to you. One of the sketches, and it's up to you to decide, does not fit the description given at all. And you will hear evidence, you will see those sketches, you will hear the information given by those witnesses about what the person looks like. But the photo that I showed you, Mr. Faust with hair, they're going to say, hey, this is Mr. Faust with his hair, and these are the sketches. Ask questions about the sketches. Look at the sketches. Listen to the information that the state gives you about the sketches. And just make sure I'm clear, the person that was reported walking in front of Ms. Baker's house, our position would be this is the same person that Ms. Riker saw coming down this way, just for clarity. Lastly, you are going to hear Mr. Faust's interview. You're going to hear what Mr. Faust himself said about this case. You will learn, contrary to what the state has told you, that Mr. Faust was told when he was arrested, we're arresting you for murder and aggravated sodomy. They hadn't asked him anything. That's what you're here for. Murder and aggravated sodomy. Mr. Faust is confused. He talks to him. He chooses to talk to him later, right? Because of course he's trying to figure out what the heck is going on. While they're talking to Mr. Faust, they didn't tell him whose murder. You will hear Elizabeth Bigham and Jeremy Howell ask Mr. Faust, did you hear about a cold case from 23 years ago? And that's how they asked him. Did you hear about a cold case from 23 years ago? Mr. Faust tells him, I vaguely remember, and this is a paraphrase, not a quote, but I vaguely remember it. I think I saw something in the paper about it. You will learn. Jeremy Howell nor Elizabeth Bigham show Mr. Faust a photo of Ms. Baker. Jeremy Howell nor Elizabeth Bigham tell Mr. Faust Ms. Baker's name. They don't say, Tara Baker case. They just say, hey, you heard about the cold case from 23 years ago. They don't even give Mr. Faust the opportunity to explain the DNA because what they tell him, and this is very important stuff, they tell him, why is your DNA found in that house? Mr. Faust said, house? I've never been to a house in Deer Park. My DNA in the house? Your DNA is in the house. And just as much as I'm here to exonerate, I am here to hunt. But the truth is, as I told you, the evidence will show there's not a shred of evidence putting Mr. Faust in the house. They didn't have that evidence. They misled Mr. Faust, and of course, here he's charged with murder and aggravated sodomy. He's probably freaking out, and he says, I don't know anything about the house. I don't know that woman. But again, they never gave him an opportunity to confirm who they were talking about. No name, no photo, just the cold case from 23 years ago in Deer Park, your DNA was found in the house. What you learn in this case, one person lies to police over and over and over and over and over again. One person simply said, I've never been to the house in the park, whatever you're talking about, I don't know. And the person that's in that chair is Mr. Faust. Now, Miss Baker, as we all know, is a very beautiful woman. They showed us a photo, from the photo that Mr. Faust would have been aware of, the disclaimer, that photo that you all saw was not a photo that was shown to Mr. Faust. I do predict that the state, they may change this, I predict that the state is going to attempt to play for you an audio version of Mr. Faust's interview. Because the video version will show that Mr. Faust was given no information other than that he was charged with murder and aggravated sodomy for a cold case that occurred 23 years ago. On the video, you will see no pictures shown to him, as I mentioned. The state's evidence may get you emotionally riled up, but those are not answers. I think this is significant for everybody to know. So in 2001, Mr. Melton is told, as I told you before, that Ms. Baker was sexually assaulted and I mean, I said sexual assault, but he knew. They told him in 2001, and that's when he came back with, I saw her 6 days before she passed away. When he was meeting with Elizabeth Bigham and Jeremy Howell, they told him, hey, we found another person's DNA in her body. And Mr. Melton's response was telling. Mr. Melton himself said, sounds like she was with someone else. Objection. Yeah. This is evidence in the case.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to ask you to go into the jury room for one more moment. Please don't discuss the case. Holden, you have an objection?
I do, Your Honor. Mr. Yalamanchili and I had talked in anticipation of us getting to this point over the weekend. Since I had made the opening statement,
I'll pull that microphone towards you. Thank you. All
that I would object since I had made the opening statement. But since Mr. Yalamanchili had made the 412 arguments in the past that he would handle.
right, thank you. Go ahead, sir.
Your Honor, as the court's aware, as the state's aware, if Mr. Cruz wasn't aware before we started all the pretrial motions in this case, he ought to be aware now. Making reference, whether it's a statement made by some other witness, whether it's elicited direct examination, cross examination, or any other method to a relationship between Ms. Baker and anyone else that was not noticed by the defense as a 412 act is prohibited by 24-4-412. I'm not sure how much clearer the statutory language could be. I'm not sure how much clearer the court could possibly have been in its instructions. But whether it's Mr. Cruz making reference to a statement that some witness made during an interview with law enforcement, or whether it's Mr. Cruz eliciting the testimony on direct examination or cross-examination, it is all prohibited by the rule, which Mr. Cruz has violated now for the second time in his opening statement. It does not matter. It does not matter one bit whether or not Chris Melton said that in an interview to law enforcement for the analysis of whether or not it is admissible and the methods that must be adhered to if the defense intends to admit it in any way, shape, or form, Judge. And so this is the second time before we've called the first witness to the witness stand that Mr. Cruz has violated 412, and what seems at this point to be an intentional pattern to try to work his way around the laws and rules of the state of Georgia as it relates to admissible evidence in cases involving allegations of rape and aggravated sodomy, Your Honor. So again, at this point, I don't know what the remedy is that the court wants to enact, but obviously telling Mr. Cruz not to do it isn't effective because he's not listening and he's not following the court's orders.
Thank you. Cruz, any response?
Absolutely. I'm actually going away in shock that the state is taking this statement to be a 412 argument. Our theory of this case is that Chris Melton committed this crime. Chris Melton stated when he's confronted with DNA that he already knew was present, that she was with someone else had. It has nothing to do with us trying to get around Chris Melton. That statement is for the sole purpose of showing his consciousness. He knew this information in 2001. He showed the exact same information in 2024. And his response isn't, oh, my girlfriend, I can't believe this happened, you guys better find her. His response is just simply to say, oh, well, must be she was with somebody else. There's no evidence that I intend to present that Chris Melton knows about Ms. Baker's sexual history. There's nothing I can intimate that Ms. Baker knows, that Mr. Melton knows about Ms. Baker's sexual history. The purpose of that statement has nothing to do with her character, with her 24/12 sexual character. The purpose of that statement is to show Chris Melton's response. When he's presented with some evidence, he gives a response that's inconsistent with the person that is innocent. So this isn't a 412. I understand the state may not like what I present, but that does not mean I have to preview every single statement I have to them so they can compare the case. This is open statement. I respect the right to anything. I told the court that multiple times. This is not a 412 argument. This is Chris Melton who knows nothing about Ms. Baker's sexual history, being confronted with a piece of evidence and making a statement that shows consciousness of guilt in our. This has nothing to do with sex.
As this court has stated multiple times, this is the second time today, multiple times during hearings, that there is a process that must be adhered to in order to get the appropriate permission from the court to introduce statements, evidence that another party objects to. In this particular case, it is a 412 motion. We have talked about this over and over again. What I have said over and over again is that the defense has failed to file a motion under 412. The state did. The defense has failed to file a motion, and I've said many times that if the defense files a 412 motion, even though it's not timely, the court will consider it. There has been no motion filed. Mr. Cruz, you've been made aware many times that you are not to bring in this kind of statement. I mean, I realize I have said several times today that opening and closing arguments of the attorneys and arguments are not evidence, and I'm going to say it again when the jury comes out. But you've been told many times that in order to, I'm talking now, Mr. Cruz, thank you. You have been told many times that in order to present statements like that, ask for the admissibility of evidence like that, you have to file the proper motion. And the court may consider it, even though it's not timely. As I just stated 10 minutes ago, I do find your statements to the jury to be avenues to circumvent 412. And it is not appropriate. I'm finding you in contempt of court. You have had the opportunity to explain yourself, and I'm finding you $1,000. And you are to present that $1,000 tomorrow morning by 9 a.m. Put it into the registry of the court. And that is my sanction for continuing to not abide by this court's orders. I don't know how many times we're going to have this, but it really can't happen again. $1,000 tomorrow morning by 9 o'clock. You may bring the jury up. Thank you.
Right?
And that's when she was like, hey, Bev, hold my moonshine.
Oh, shit.
My God. Sorry.
Yep.
Flash
But it's
fan.
fully on the
Was
record,
that
so that's a
right?
great appellate thing.
Yeah. Flash fan, was that case televised that you were just talking about? The other one in Georgia? Because I will look into it. If you could,
I wrote it down and put it on the my ideas board. So I'll
okay,
let you know.
okay.
But if it's
'Cause,
a
yeah, we
cold
could.
case,
Well,
then
it
there's
sounds
no
like it went
trial.
to trial. It sounds like it went to trial. Because
No, if I remember correctly. Okay. So yes. Okay. Sounds good.
Law and Crime and Court TV. Okay, we will definitely look into it.
Awesome. Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, that's whew, this bitch. And I totally forgot
Yeah.
about the hearing for Aiden and Karen, but if Trial Channel puts it up tomorrow before we start testimony, we can watch that real quick if everybody's interested in watching that. It might just be like a status thing.
Yeah, and it hadn't started yet,
Oh, okay.
but yeah. So
Yeah,
all right,
well, they
let's.
don't like people. They don't like people streaming them, so you know.
Mhm. Right.
Okay.
Thanksgiving Day. Okay, I'll write that down.
Okay. All right. Back to this
Yeah,
because
go
we are
ahead, roll.
almost done with openings.
I do remember this case.
All right, you all may be seated. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to remind you that any statements made by the attorneys, whether it is in opening statements or closing statements or during arguments, any statements by the attorneys are not to be considered as evidence. Mr. Cruz?
Can you hear me, bitch? Not. I can turn it up for you.
At the end of this case, when you go back home, you're sitting around the dinner table, and someone
This
says
is
to
why
you,
I love you, May.
why did you find Mr. Faust not guilty? You're going to say, well, I was fed a wealth of information. All this information came and it boiled down to one thing. The state couldn't prove that Edrick Faust was the person that killed Tara Baker. The state could not prove or present evidence that Mr. Faust was in Miss Baker's home. All of the hair found on and around Miss Baker's body was Caucasian hair. Mr. Faust is an African-American man. And that's why we voted not guilty. The prosecution in a murder case is required to prove their case beyond and to the exclusion of every reasonable doubt. Not a forced doubt or a speculative doubt, but a reasonable doubt. They have to present a case from you from A to Z. If A is Mr. Faust's DNA and Z is law enforcement's investigation, they never answer the question at G, at H, at I, at J, K. They don't answer the questions about personnel. They don't answer the questions about hair, even the hair found in her hand. If he did it, why would she have somebody else's hair in her hand? Why would she have non-African-American hair in her hand? If Mr. Faust did it, how did he get in and out of the house unseen? Why didn't anybody see a black man running through the neighborhood? If he did it, why would he take so much time cleaning up her apartment? He doesn't know who stays there. There are 3 bedrooms. If he's a stranger, why would he take that time to clean her apartment? This was a crime opportunity. You all swore to uphold the law, to hold the state to its burden. There is evidence here of reasonable doubt that Mr. Faust did not kill Ms. Baker. And it is not just sprinkled through this case. Reasonable doubt lives in this case. When you all have heard the evidence in this case, we're going to ask you to render a verdict of not guilty. In this nightmare for Mr. Faust, I am asking you individually and as a body to find Mr. Faust not guilty. Thank you.
All right, thank you, counsel, for both parties. Ladies and gentlemen, we started a bit late today. It is certainly late. I am going to give you a lunch break, even though it is certainly late. I'm going to ask that you return here at 4 o'clock. We're going to try to get into a little bit of the case. I promised Dr. Waller that we would be gone by 5. I've kind of promised all of you that 5 o'clock is kind of our limit. There may be days where we go a little bit longer. There may be days where we go shorter. But I did promise Dr. Waller 5 o'clock today because I know he has an emergency at his house. So we're going to do that. But we're going to get into a little bit of the case at 4 o'clock. When you leave here today, please don't discuss the case, of course, with anyone. Do any independent research. Go to any of the
Yada, 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 yada. Anyway. Okay.
Got it. Yes. I don't like her.
All right. So, deep breath.
Yes. So everybody make sure that you carry peace and love in your heart today after watching this.
Hi, Joy.
Hey, Joy.
So,
Hey, love.
I'm gonna do the grifting thing one more time. I don't normally, I've said this like 3 times already, but I don't normally ask for specific amounts. I just ask for donations if you want to give. But like I said before, there was a issue with our son's money and it won't be coming in. It's supposed to get paid tomorrow. Won't be coming in for a while. And if you like our streams specifically, I mean, you know, both our channels, but my channel, especially because Madeline will not be here next week and I have to go solo. If you could help me out to pay for StreamYard and to help me keep my phone on so that way I can keep a hold of the kids' school, things like that. It's $85. It's all I need. If you can help, please help. They're crying. Get in. We're having issues with mom and taking care of the babies. So if you hear my husband lecturing her, that's why. So yeah, so hi.
That's awesome. Love it, Joy.
Yes.
Um,
So Cash App, $ NGM 1984YT, Venmo at NGM 1984. Follow me on X at NGM 1984YT, Facebook Angie Mead. If you have any case suggestions or you would like to join my Discord, please email me at ngm1984yt@gmail.com. Discord's kind of boring, but you know, I'm working on it. We might do some voice chats, you know, hang out. We'll see. And yeah, I believe that's it.
yes. And so yes, I will not be here next week. I am going to Knoxville for the creator, you know, Broken Bakers meet and greet with the expert and all of them. Also, I'm trying to save some money to help Scarlett be able to do all the fun things as well. So anything that's donated to my Cash App is going to be put towards the trip, and that is $TC Maylin. Right now, I am putting a hold on all of my. Talk to Hippie. Hippie's doing all that part. Oh yeah. So right now I'm not doing any of my solo streams when we're not streaming. I am deep into a story that I want to make it sure I get everything right on. So I'll be back to doing those. June 8th will be current crimes. And then Wednesdays will be gangsters, and Fridays I'll have my Seriously Fridays again with serial killers. But as of right now, we're going to put a hold on all of that until I get back from Hollywood. So definitely, we definitely appreciate cheese and carrots. Okay, scratch all that. We appreciate each and every single one of you guys for coming today and watching this with us. Always, always remember to go out with love and peace in your heart. We love you guys.
Yes. Yeah, so that's it. We will see you all tomorrow. Have a great day and great night. And don't forget that Aiden is streaming tonight. It is Turtle Boy Tuesday. So it'll be the regular Turtle Boy stream. And yeah, we'll see you all on the chats. Have a great day, everybody. Bye.
Tara was 23. When they took her from the world, her body was violated. Her house was set on fire. The wall kept what it saw, and the floor kept all the smoke. They left a case to gather dust under a broken law, but the jury stared ahead through the smoke and the spin. And the widow and the records would not give in. They let a man away. His side said there was nothing that tied him to that day, and the room went cold. Now the fight begins to prove the verdict wrong. Every page still trembling, every silence long. Now the fight begins. This fight begins. Tara's name is strong. If the truth was buried, it still breathes along. Years later, there was a trial and the names all bent. His defense said nothing ties him to the crime scene floor. They pointed at the one she loved and asked who knocked that door. They said the wrong man stood there while the real one slipped away. But the records kept her bleeding in the dark of every page. The file said shut for years and years, and the pain stayed near. Now the fight has found a table. Now the witness clears. They looked ahead, but not at her, not at what was true. And every sealed up folder started breaking through. Now the fight begins to prove the verdict wrong. Every page still trembling, every silence long. Now the fight begins. Tara's name is strong. If the truth was buried, it still breathes along. 23 years and the names all been. One verdict hit the table, but the wound won't end. Now the fight begins to prove a time concealed. Her house burned hard that night, but the truth won't yield. Now the fight begins to prove the verdict wrong. Every page still trembling, every silence long. Now the fight begins. Tara's name is strong. If the truth was buried, it still breathes along. Tara's name keeps rising like a bell in time.